Did we do it? Did we do it? We've done it. We've done it yet again. Here we go. Yesterday was weird. Yesterday there was lots of like collapsing and all this kind of stuff. Strangeness was happening. Let's play some music. Let's play some music while we wait for people to come on in. You know, I played Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah yesterday. Boy, did I enjoy that. I found it to be so uplifting. So I think I'm going to do a rendition of that while we wait for people to come on in the chat. Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled can compose, and hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Now your faith was strong, you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew ya. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne, she cut your hair, and from her lips she drew a hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Now you say I took the name in vain, and I don't even know the name, and if I did, well, really, what's it to ya? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, I tried my best, it wasn't enough. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool ya. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hey Barnabas, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. I think it's time I finally start just admitting to myself that I'm having a tough Christmas, you know? This season, I've never enjoyed this season ever. Even when I was surrounded with family and friends, like everything seemed false. Everything seems forced and false and unreal and not not meaningful or connected in any kind of real way. And as we go through today's news and as we see stuff, I feel like one of the things that I'm observing in our society is just this untethering from one another, and that this untethering is beginning to manifest itself in absurd expressions of anger and frustration and rage, and it just seems like, especially during this period of time where it's supposed to all be about camaraderie, it's supposed to be all about togetherness, it's supposed to be all about family, it's supposed to be about these things. And for you, I hope it is. I genuinely do. I hope that it is about connecting with your loved ones, your friends, and your family, and spending those moments together, spending that time with one another, having real conversations, discovering one another. Maybe people you haven't even seen all year. And taking the time to touch with them again and rediscover who they are and what it is they've been doing and what it is they've come to believe or what it is they see in the world. And part of the trouble with what's going on is there's no longer any kind of central prevailing ideology that makes sense any longer. There's no agreed upon mythology any longer, which is a big reason why there's such a dramatic split in the society. And it seems the gulf between the two positions seems wider than it's ever been. And I think it's because people are experiencing, but what they're experiencing is different. Like, literally. Like, there's one group of people who do what they're told and who obey the system and who are rewarded for it, for the most part. And another group of people who perhaps attempted to, but were rejected by the system. And so they've had a completely different experience. And the two can't reconcile one another. That the more advice this side tries to give this side, the more alienating it is. And the more this side tells this side about their lived reality, the more alienating it is. And it's just easier for these two groups to split off from one another, but ultimately you can't run a society or a civilization that way. And it's manifesting itself in our familial politics, right? Like the classic, like, oh, my conservative uncle, right? That kind of riff. You hear that all the time. And these separations in our family, down to the family level, are manifesting in the society in dramatic ways. Dramatic and real ways. Like, at the end of the day, we're just scared monkeys, you know? We're just scared little monkeys, trying our best to make it through and trying to believe that everyone around us is also trying their best to make sure that everything is okay. So I hope things are good for you and your family, and that you are able to spend that time with your family. I sincerely do. All my family is out in Manitoba, so I'll get a couple of like Skype conversations in, basically, and maybe spend a little bit of time with a friend. But I don't really celebrate Christmas in the first place because of statements like this that I've always believed and I've always known. Right? When it hits you, you have less free time than medieval serfs, are paid less than Bob Cratchit, and are working the worst global pandemic in history to make billionaires richer. It does take on that tinge of absolute absurdism, right? It does take on this tinge of absolute absurdism. What if it's people who make you feel empty? Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean by that, Barnabas. Like, there's a falseness, like a pageantry a presentation that happens at Christmas. And sometimes it's quite difficult because, like, you know that when you're communicating with the pageantry or the presentation, that you're not really talking to a real person, right? You're talking to the mask. You're talking to the performance of a person. And we live in a society where that performative person, that false person that we create, right, is well crafted by large segments of the society. It's the reason why depression and anxiety are becoming more prevalent, because in this corporate culture and in this upswing of retail culture that exists, which is extremely new, you are punished. You are punished if you don't present yourself. And you are only rewarded if you create an image, a false image of a person, right? That everybody who's in retail knows what I'm talking about. Like, when a person comes up to your cash or when you're on the floor and you're talking to people, right? You're not being a genuine person with these people. You're a fake NPC that you've created. Hey, how you doing today? What can I help you with? Oh yeah, you're looking for that? Oh, yeah. Well, how old's the kid you're shopping for today? Oh yeah, great. Little 10-year-old. What's he getting his hands into? What is he like? Oh yeah, hey, let me show you some stuff right over here, eh? Now, are you looking for something a little bit educational? Are you looking for something a little bit just fun or goofy? Like, what do you think? Right? Like, it's fake. It's a fake character that you just hone, right? Oh, hey, how you doing today? Oh, would you like to donate to charity today? Okay, beep, beep, beep. Okay, well, that's going to be $14.58. How you paying? How you paying today? Yeah. That's just putting on a positive attitude. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the language that they'll use, right? And they're not incorrect. Like, it's not, but it's false, right? Like, and what they want you to focus on is putting on a positive attitude, while kind of fading into the background the fact that they're literally saying putting on, right? Fake it till you make it, right? And so what you end up with is you end up with a society of people who are extremely good at faking. And when you talk, and then you kind of begin to wonder, like, hey, if you spend the majority of your time being a fake person, do you even know who you actually are? Do you even know what's real about yourself? When are you actually yourself? Does anyone even really know who you are? Do you dare be yourself in front of anyone? Capgrass delusion. Let's take a look at that, Mock. How you doing today, Mock? Good to see you. We're going to jump into today's number pretty quickly here, but let's take a look at what Capgrass delusion. Oh yeah, he's drinking some water. He's going to be the irrational belief that a familiar person or place has been replaced with an exact duplicate. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm talking about, Mocked, but I understand what you mean. Like, we create like, it's not really irrational though, right? Like, this isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but I understand where you're coming from. Okay, let's jump into the day's number. I also understand, like, being sad, but also not wanting to depress others. Yeah, that's my boat. Exactly, right? You don't want to put your burdens on someone else. And that's sort of the fear, right? You don't want to alienate people because sharing your sadness is a downer. And it's all about, like, positivity, right? Anyway, let's get into the day's number. We got a 7, we got a 3. I know Mocked is picking a 7.
Here we
hey,
go
Harry, how you doing, bud?
Number.
Good to see you.
It's December 23, 2021.
I am going to go with 2.
10 balls.
Feeling like a 2
Each
today.
ball has a number.
Each ball has a number.
Numbers 1 through 10. Swirl the number.
As y'all in with an 8, good to see you, bud.
Pick a number.
Here we go. Here we go. Pick a
Today's number is 3.
3 for Harry. 3 for Harry. Ding, 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 ding. Time to go buy that lotto ticket, Harry. Do, 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 do. You did the thing. You got the number. The David Lynchian energy went with you. And as always, what I'm doing here, I am playing the random song, one of my pieces. Whoops. Disaster all over. One of my pieces, randomly generated by the number pick. Which song are we got there? Oh, this is a nice one. All right. Well, a nice one. This is a calmer one. Oop, get the pick out of there. So, Harry, this one's for you, bud. To kindly put down the gun. You don't need to hurt anyone. The world's too hot, the people are too cold. Not gonna bother getting home. Work turns to bombs, my life's a lie. No one'll notice if another girl dies, and doesn't need to be this way. 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 Christ collapses in an olive grove. Prays with blood to his God above. Please, my Father, find another way. Please don't take my life away. The humans know not what they do, and must I die before they'll see what's true? And doesn't need to be this way. 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 She asked me kindly, put the needle in. I can't bear this world of sin. I'm racked with pain, I wish to die. Only God knows the reasons why. Why we want to live this way. A soulless people forgot to pray, and doesn't need to be this way. 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 Ooh. That's a real haunting tune, that one. That's the kind of thing that gets into your sleep. That's the kind of thing that haunts you in your dreams, comes on through. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. Let's get into the day's news, as I have been doing on this channel regularly. We're going to start. If you catch a bustle in your hedgerow, it's just to spring clean for the May Queen. You doing okay over there, Barnabas? How you doing, bud? Well, as predicted, cases are up. We're over 5,000, right? I'm looking forward to when we're over 9,000 so I can go, it's over 9,000! It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And this is completely predictable, completely predicted by the Ontario Health Ministry. Will Omicron fuel hospitalizations in Canada? Here's what other countries tell us. Now, I wanted to read this one because I feel like it's a very clear, very clean cut, coming from global news, right? So from the heart of corporate media. And Kingston, Ontario posted 154 new cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday as its Omicron outbreak continued. The eastern Ontarian city of around 160,000 people was an early hotspot of the Omicron outbreak in Canada, with an early explosion of cases. But at the Kingston Health Sciences Centre, the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 has gone down recently, said Dr. Gerald Evans, an infectious disease specialist at the hospital with Queen's University. So far, at least, the effect of this increasing number of cases, most of which are Omicron, has not yet hit the hospitals, he said. Recent research is giving some health experts hope that people will stay out of hospital. 2 new studies from the UK and 1 from South Africa suggest that a smaller percentage of people who catch Omicron might end up in the hospital than with previous variants. Though doctors say that even if that's true, the health system could have a hard time keeping up. For now, doctors are assuming that the percentage of patients who end up in the hospital due to the Omicron variant will be similar to the percentage of hospitalized with Delta, Evans said. If that's the case, then these rising case numbers will mean that at least in a few more weeks, we're likely to see increasing hospitalizations of individuals. This is already happening in Quebec, where hospital admissions are beginning to rise after days of record-breaking case numbers. In the UK, which is dealing with its own Omicron-fueled wave of COVID-19, 2 recent studies suggest that people who catch Omicron might be less likely to be hospitalized than with previous variants. An analysis from the Imperial College London COVID-19 response team estimated hospitalization risks for Omicron cases in England, finding people infected with the variant are around 20% less likely to go to the hospital at all than those infected with the Delta variant, and 40% less likely to be hospitalized for a night or more. That analysis included all cases of COVID-19 confirmed by PCR tests in England in the first half of December in which the variant could be identified. 56,000 cases of Omicron and 269 cases of Delta. A separate study out of Scotland by scientists at the University of Edinburgh and other experts suggested the risk of hospitalization was 2/3 less with Omicron than Delta. But that study pointed out that nearly 24,000 Omicron cases in Scotland were predominantly among younger adults aged 20 to 39. Younger people are much less likely to develop severe cases of COVID-19. Even though controlling for age, researchers still found a similar effect. The national investigation is one of the first to show that Omicron is less likely to result in COVID-19 hospitalization than Delta, researchers wrote. While the findings are early observations, they are encouraging, the authors wrote. UK hospitalizations have gone up, but not hugely, said Linda Bald, a professor of public health with the University of Edinburgh. That doesn't mean it won't happen, she said. She and her UK colleagues are projecting that the middle and end of January could still see a surge in hospitalizations. But she said, so far, Omicron doesn't seem to be causing as much severe illness. Partially, she thinks, that's because many of the UK cases have been in younger people, who are less likely to end up in hospital with COVID-19. Also, she notes, hospitalization is a lagging indicator and could still catch up. She thinks the lower hospitalization rate also has a lot to do with vaccines and previous COVID-19 infections. While the Omicron variant is better at infecting people who are vaccinated or who have some immunity from a previous infection, she said, those cases seem less likely to be severe. Probably the vast majority of them will have had 2 doses, and they may well have had the second dose more than 3 or 2 months ago, where we know there is some waning, she said. However, these studies may show that individuals do have some protection, she said. Evans hopes the same. We know that even with 2 doses, there is an effect of offering some protection against severe outcomes, even against Omicron, so that's in our favor at the moment, he said. Still, it's too early to tell what Omicron's impact will be on Canadian hospitals, Dr. Alison McGreer, an infectious diseases specialist at Toronto Mount Sinai Hospital, said on Wednesday. We don't expect people to be hospitalized until 7 to 10 days post-onset, and it is exactly 7 days ago that Omicron exceeded Delta. Not long enough to be able to tell. Hospitals' ability to handle Omicron depends a lot on the overall case numbers, Evans said. When we modeled the case numbers at the Ontario Science Table a week or so ago, there's a very broad range in terms of the total number of cases, he said. And at the very extremes, that would probably overload the ability of hospitals to maintain it, especially given that we're stressed now by staffing issues because many of our staff are getting infected out in the community. It's not just hospitals that could be affected, even if the virus isn't causing lots of severe illness, Bald said. In the UK, she said, staff absences are a concern in the healthcare system and elsewhere. With such an infectious virus and so many hundreds of thousands of cases, we are already seeing a major impact on our public services, she said. We've had hundreds of train cancellations, for example, in Scotland over recent days, and we're concerned about some of our essential services. Canada needs to keep handing out 3rd doses of vaccines, she said, and consider reimposing some restrictions to avoid this. So, a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of kind of wait-and-see-ism going on, a little bit of like all of this, but at the same time kind of a hopeful tune of saying all of the evidence we're seeing is that Omicron is not going to be as scary as we thought it was initially, that yes, transmissions are up, yes, all of that, but in terms of its deadliness, seems as though it's a little bit not so crazy. That the people who are really of concern are, as always, the unvaccinated. And it is beginning to come down the pipe, right? You're seeing the United States President Joe Biden make very explicit statements saying that the unvaccinated are going to pay for what they're doing, right? That they're no longer willing to sugarcoat what's about to happen. Because of the high level of transmissibility of Omicron, if you are unvaccinated, you're going to be confronted with this thing. It is coming down the pipe. And here in Canada, we're a little bit more fortunate. I believe the numbers are like at least 75% of the populace is already vaccinated. So most people have gone along with it. And again, I think it is important to say right now, I have no ill will or hatred towards people who are called quote-unquote anti-vax. I mean, there is a certain degree of outright conspiracy mind going on. And anytime I went down to the anti-vax protests, I was directed to people who told me, first thing they said to me, COVID-19 doesn't exist. It was the first thing they would say to me. And so there's quite a lot of this conspiracy brain going on. But I also feel like there is a good amount of just straight up healthy skepticism. Normal sort of just like, really, we trust the government. We trust these institutions to actually provide something that's actually helping. And that's the question that we need to begin confronting a little bit more seriously. Like, how is it that this culture of deep skepticism has arisen, right? How is it that people are literally willing to risk their own life, to risk their health and safety? Because that is what is happening at this point. That it is no longer, like, they are not a threat to us. Right? Like the people who are not vaccinated are not a threat to us in any way, right? What they are doing, like at best, you can create an argument that says, well, what they are doing is going to overwhelm the healthcare system and that's going to cause problems for us in sort of an abstract sort of a way, like we're taxpayers and all of this. And yes, it's making the life of medical professionals harder, certainly. But like, it's not actually going to like destroy the society or anything. Right? And we're not really having a very calm conversation about, like, well, why is this happening at all? Why is it that, grifters like Donald Trump can just roll through and grift people so effectively without any sense of skepticism, what is going on in the society? And we are not actually taking the time to talk to one another without this sense of overwhelming judgment of one another, without the condemnation or the blame or the finger pointing or the divisiveness. And I worry that the reason why that's not happening is because we've lost the capacity to do so. That everything is being broken into tribalism, that everything is being separated. Yeah, because the U.S. right has been cucking education since the 70s, less educated, more easily controlled. I mean, the U.S. left is just as much to blame of this, honestly. I don't really buy into this idea that the right and the left have been acting differently. Like, you can find, like, little things, sure, but like Jimmy Carter putting solar panels on the roof of the White House and then the Bush administration removing them, like that kind of narrative. But, like, in terms of any kind of grand sweeping ideas of educated versus less educated, right? Like, it's not like the Democrats have been, like, actually passing important legislation when they had the opportunity to do so, right? And they have had opportunities to do so. Like, I point to Obama's first 2 years as president. They had the House and the Senate, right? And they did fucking nothing with it. And that's pretty emblematic of how the Democrats roll. That their whole narrative is, oh, well, we would do stuff. It's just those Republicans, grumble. And then when they actually get all the power, suddenly there's a couple of Democrats, like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema, right? Suddenly now, we could get it done, but grumble. There's a couple of Democrats, right? And it's total bullshit, because when it comes to actually fighting against genuine threats within the party, right? Your Dennis Kucinich, your Ralph Naders, your Bernie Sanders. They know exactly how to rein those people in. They know exactly how to destroy those people. So, like, why is it that Joe Manchin is just like, oh yeah, completely left alone, no trouble, no problems, gets to keep all his positions, gets to maintain his seat, completely unopposed, right? But someone like Dennis Kucinich, who actually wants to get something done, well, his seat gets outright eliminated, and they chase him out of the party, right? Like, it becomes pretty clear that and this pretending like the right and the left in America are different from one another, I think fuels the problem. We've got to start admitting that they all work for the same people, for the same ends. And I think your end point is absolutely correct, Barnabas, that the less educated are more easy to control, and so that's the reason why they don't actually want to educate people. And that's the reason here in Canada we don't want to educate people. Like we don't tell people how the government works. Like, isn't that weird? Like, you can go through literally 12 years of school and then go get a university degree and then go get a master's and then go get a PhD. And at no point does anyone sit you down and say, this is how your government works. No one. And no one at any point says, this is what money is. At any point. It doesn't exist. And that by itself is highly suspicious. Like, highly suspicious. Why are they not telling us how the system we operate in actually functions? And it's for good reasons, right? That Henry Ford nailed it, right? He said it is better that the American people do not know how their economy works, for if they did, there would be revolution by the morning. And I think that's fundamentally true. If people actually understood the system that they live in, they wouldn't tolerate it. They wouldn't tolerate it for a second. Like, it's a farce. It's a farce on the face of it. And the wealthy and the powerful know it, right? That's why they don't want to tell you about it. Harry, with COVID overwhelming hospitals, surgeries are canceled or postponed. Yeah, I'm waiting for a surgery. Many Canadians have died because of the surgeries were pushed back yet. This is a failure of leadership that the pandemic has been politicized. I think you're onto something there for sure, Harry. And the Ford administration is beginning to pay for it. Like, people are seeing this rise in Omicron, and the Ford administrations, well, and honestly, all the administrations, it really does look like the political leadership of this country and of the American country is basically throwing their hands up and saying, like, well, it's an endemic now. We have to live with it. Off we go. We're not going to bother with restrictions. We're not going to bother with anything. We're just going to bite the bullet. That's really what it is now. We're just going to bite the bullet. Victini, how you doing, bud? DM, good to see you too, guys. Good to see you too. Guys, I want to pause for a minute and just say, like, you know what I'm really thankful for coming up to this Christmas season is that I'm so thankful that you guys are here. One of the things that I'm so concerned about this channel, and I recently found David Dole talking about something, which is very near and dear to my heart. Where did that escape to? So here's David Dole, right, talking about, I might play this later if I have to go take the poops down or something. My dog down, I call him the poops. He's funny. And he has been noticing that a suppression of his channel. And this is a guy that has like what, 100,000 subscribers? Like, hold on, let's be real specific. I don't want to tell tales out of school. Yeah, this is a guy that has 443,000 subscribers, right? And he's commenting on how he's noticing that his channel is getting suppressed. And he's noticing, like, throughout December, he had 0 subscribers, right? Which is very unlikely considering the size of his channel. And he's pointing out, like, he knows how, he can see how many views are being done by subscribers and how many are being done by people who are not subscribers. And it used to be kind of a 50-50 split. And now it's literally like a 75-25 split. And so this story, and hearing it come from David Dole himself, that YouTube is suppressing left media, has really got me kind of in a downward spiral, honestly. Like, it really has. Because my entire life interacting with capitalism has been a series of building and then total failure. Like, literally building up and then collapse. And then building up and then collapse. And then building up and then collapse. Over and over and over and over again. That has been my experience with capitalism and this culture and this society. That the whole pull your bootstraps up and everything. I have tried to do this on many occasions. And here I am attempting to run this channel, something I've always wanted to do. So this is something I've always wanted to do. And I really wish I had listened to myself back when the internet and YouTube was first starting. I really wish I had just been like, I'm going to do this. And people are going to make fun of me. And I'm going to do it. I don't care. I wish I had just shut all those voices out and just gone forward with it. But now we're in this pandemic. Capitalism has abandoned me for the 3rd or 4th time in my own life. And so now I'm just like, no, I'm just going to do it. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what these people think anymore. Like, their opinions are irrelevant because they're fucking nightmare sociopaths. But now here I am getting to, like, there's a checkpoint coming. 1,000 subscribers is a checkpoint. It is a real moment for this channel. Right? And when we hit 1,000, everything changes. The channel can be monetized. I can get access to super chats. I can get access to a merchandise store, and it's all provided through YouTube itself, right? The rules completely change at 1,000 subscribers. And the moment I hit 800, my channel started getting throttled, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Like, I used to get like 100 subscribers a month, right? This channel was going boop, 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 boop. And the second I hit 800, I'm going to end up with 25 subscribers this month. Maybe. Maybe. And it's disheartening. It's disheartening. Like, I keep talking on this channel about how I'm expecting the other shoe to drop, and here it is. The other shoe is dropping. That they're not going to outright ban me, right? They're not going to just take me off the platform, but they can just completely throttle me. Like, they can just put me at the bottom. They can just not share me. They can just not send me around. They can just not talk about me. They can just make sure that nobody ever sees me, right? They can just make sure that my perspective and the news that I'm bringing to the forefront just doesn't get seen or talked about at all, right? And that the only way, so what this means is that the only way for this channel to gain any traction is just for you guys to tell people about it. That's it. It's literally the only way this channel is going to keep growing, right? Is that I can send it around on the internet and do what I can to show people. And like, but really it's just word of mouth at this point, right? No, Ken, I don't want you to create multiple accounts. I want this done honestly. I want this done honestly. Because that kind of behavior is how a channel like this gets really hurt. Like, maybe I can find some short-term gain on that, but it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt in the long run. And so, and honestly, like, honesty is number one. If we don't have honesty and integrity, we have absolutely nothing. And I'm not interested in playing a game like that. And I know that I'm never going to stop doing this, right? As long as I have enough money in my bank account to pay my rent, I'm going to keep doing this. If I have to get a fucking ham radio and I got to talk over a fucking ham radio to other people on the ham radio, I'm going to do it. And that's the way I'm going to roll. If I have to do it that way. If I got to get on fucking Parler or Rumble or any of these other guys, right? Like, that's the way it's going to go. But boy, howdy, like, why can't it be easier than this? Why is it that every single fucking time, literally every single fucking time I want to do literally fucking anything, literally fucking anything, capitalism just puts its boot on my face and just pushes me into the ground? Every single fucking time. Like, it just is becoming, like, outrageous. Like, the word is outrageous. Like, there's a reason. For God's sakes, there's a reason why there's a great resignation. There's a reason why people are abandoning this system. Because the system has become absurd. Right? Nothing worth having in life is ever easy. I mean, I don't know. It seemed pretty easy to be alive. Like, I was created fairly easily, I think, from my perspective, right? Wasn't too much heartache. Anyway. Glad you started the live chat as a result. Thanks, DM. Thank you. Adam, I had stopped getting RatNat notifications for a while until David complained on Twitter, then the notifications started again. Yeah. Like, it's... And if somebody like him, like this guy's got 400,000 subscribers, like if somebody like him is noticing it, like for sure they're putting their boot on my back, right? Like, and it's a form of neo-McCarthyism is what we're experiencing, right? Instead of bringing people in front of the Senate and like blacklisting them that way, they're just having an algorithm do it, right? It's monstrous. It's monstrous. The John movement has only started. Don't ever think otherwise, John. That's nice to say, DM. Thank you. $50 an hour from the government. Amazon and Costco deliver toilet paper and food to people. Like, screw the stock market and profit. Let's shut her down for a few weeks. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. Like, we got to kill this monster. We got to kill this monster. I'm glad I found your show, John. It's difficult to find a Canadian community on YouTube. Thanks, Harry. I appreciate that. And that's a big reason why I think this channel is going to be successful ultimately. Because I was looking around for someone who was doing what I was doing from the kind of Canadian perspective. And there's the Rational National, don't get me wrong, and he does fine work. Like, he's not, like, I don't have any complaint about David Dole. But he's not doing like a live stream, and he's not doing like that kind of a thing. And also, I find his positions are usually like just a little bit left of liberalism, really. DM, you're such a sweetheart. I'm thankful for this channel. We need more like this channel. Very sweet of you. Very sweet of you guys. Why would you encourage people to take measures to combat the virus when it's not profitable? Interesting point. Interesting point. Yeah. I still think that it's about data. It's about data, right? That and as long as my perspective is, as long as hospitalizations are low and the symptoms are kind of like we lived for decades, guys. Like, my entire life we lived with the common cold and the flu and all this kind of stuff, and nobody said boo. It was just fucking normal, right? So I don't really see, like, if COVID becomes like that, then it's over, right? Like, it is. Like, if COVID just becomes kind of like that, then it's over. And we can just get on with our lives. I'm still going to walk around with a mask. I haven't been sick since the start of this pandemic, and I used to get sick on average like 3 times a year. And so, like, I'm for sure going to keep wearing the mask. Like, I absolutely. I think it's, and even if we get to a point where we're like 10 years later and people are like, hey, John, why are you wearing the mask? I'm going to be like, dude, I don't want to get sick. Like, being sick sucks. And also, like, people look cool with the mask sometimes, I got to tell you. Like, some people, they've like really incorporated the mask into their look. Hey, Nova Scotia, how you doing? The reason is they're scared of you. Yeah, well, I mean, they're scared of the truth. They see the upswell of anti-capitalist stuff, and you can see the desperation. Like, this stuff here, the Capitalist Manifesto from National Post, like, these articles are desperate. Like, they are desperate. Like for real, the Capitalist Manifesto, care about workers' rights, forget about socialism. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, here, let's really go through this, and I'm going to show you and I am going to at some point do like a proper, like, I'm going to collect all of these articles into like a file format, and like because these are crazed. Like, these positions are crazed. Hey Ruth, how you doing today? Like, one of socialism's greatest myths is that it maximizes the prosperity of workers. Yet, historically, the opposite has been true. Rather than emancipate the working class, socialism crushes it under the yoke of exploitation. Instead of uplifting labor activists who call for fairer wages and better working conditions, socialist countries have often punished them with beatings and imprisonment. And then no examples of it. Okay. To understand why labor activism fares so poorly under socialism, it's important to consider the implications of fusing industry with government. In capitalist system, employment is spread across a massive number of firms. Okay. As they compete with one another, they reduce their collective bargaining power relative to the workers they employ. So no comprehension whatsoever of monopolyism, right? That, like, take a look at like Rogers, Bell, and Telus. Very, very clear example of just collusion, right? Just collusion and obvious monopoly capitalism, which is the end result of all capitalist systems and structures, right? That you can see it in the oil industry, right? That they come together as a council and they work together because they understand, like, the argument of competition is exactly the reason why they collude with one another and then create monopolies with one another and then, like, literally, like, intermarry. Like the head of, like, Shell Canada will own 20% of the stock of, like, ExxonMobil and vice versa, and they'll all just own percentages of each other's stock, so that they become like a council that is actually integrated with one another. So this hysterically illiterate propaganda that's coming out of the National Post is designed to obfuscate that reality, right? It's just like, no, that's not happening. There's real competition. Promise. And it's telling that this person can't even, like, who is this person? Adams Zivo can't even give an example. He says, oh, people fare worse under socialists. Can you give an example? No? Oh, interesting. This creates opportunities for workers to negotiate concessions from their employers. That's literally never how it's happened. It's always been through strikes and workers' actions. Always. Especially if they are unionized. So socialism is bad, but socialism systems are good. Like this, and also incidentally, this is just an outright admission by this author that unions are ultimately capitalist systems, right? Cooperation begets power, and while labor unions have their shortcomings and can in some cases be counterproductive, they are also a potent advocacy tool for workers' rights. Like, look how weak they are. Right? They're so weak that they're actually capitulating the idea that unions are good. Right? That's how weak they've become. However, when the state assimilates the private sector, it creates a quasi-union of employers glued together by the power of government, which amplifies their bargaining power. Yeah, it's the dictatorship of the proletariat, dude. Like, the workers run the government. And so what do the workers do when they run the government? They improve their own lives. That's the idea. Socialist employers use this extra bit of bargaining power to more brutally exploit their workers. Let's take a look at their article. The New Class by what? Oh my God. So like literally they're so desperate that they're like linking to a December 1957 Cultural and Civilization, like his recognition that communists no longer represent the proletariat, but that, like, so it's like a propaganda piece that's linking to another propaganda piece. I'm not going to go through that. Unforgiving work hours and low wages are peddled as necessary sacrifice for building of a new utopia. The Kellogg's workers under the capitalist system were literally working 60 days straight, 12-hour to 16-hour days. What the fuck are you even talking about? Like, and again, interesting how he can't give an example, right? Interesting how there's no example. A clear-eyed person would call this out for what it is. Oligarchy. We literally are an oligarchy. Literally. Like, this is the classic just blame others for what you are guilty of, right? Like, it's absurdism upon absurdism. Yet this type of oligarchy sanctifies itself with the rhetoric of revolution and social justice. The working class is thus vampirically sucked dry while watching portraits of itself be adorned with ribbons, all to the applause of socialists around the world who, out of dogmatism or ignorance, take state propaganda at face value and will fail to ask themselves why socialist workers seem so exhausted. No example of this, right? No example given. Like, literally, you're just making a claim without evidence, right? And claims that are put forward without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So this is just nonsense. And incidentally, when we describe this, doesn't it sound an awful lot like capitalism, right? Like, they're literally just taking a critique of capitalism itself and then changing the word to socialism and pretending like it's the same. It's like they read Chris Hedges' work and we're just like, oh, just cross out capitalism, put in socialism, and print it. These workers lack the capacity to fight abusive employers because the labor unions that are supposed to represent them are politically impotent. Oh, here we go. In the Soviet Union, for example, trade union membership was widespread, a fact that was paraded around as a victory for workers' rights. But the unions were also prohibited from challenging the state. Here's their claim for this. Organized labor under the Soviets. Like, this, of course, is a misunderstanding of how the Soviet system actually worked. Right? Like, yes, the unions were not allowed to foment a revolution against the established power structure, But that's oh look, and it's paywall, right? Paywall, right? Oh yeah, I promise, guys, this is the truth. You just gotta pay $1 to Foreign Affairs to find out, right? So like a bullshit article linking to another bullshit article. They were instead reduced to resolving trivial managerial conflicts and organizing social activities. Like unless, like, you mean politics, right? The unions were part of the governmental structure. The word Soviet means council, right? That the unions were not something that, like in our culture, unions live outside the structure of the government, right? They are a non-political entity that is a band of workers. In the Soviet unions, those unions were part of the governmental structure. And the government was responsive to what the unions wanted to say, right? So when they say the unions were prohibited from challenging the state, like, yeah, the unions were prohibited from fomenting a revolution to work on a coup, to fight outside the political structure because they were part of the political structure, right? Like, it's this overt attempt, like it's this overt willingness to misinterpret, right? To not understand on purpose. It was simply assumed that the Soviet government, being socialist in spirit, would act on behalf of the working class. No, it wasn't assumed. The working class ran the government. Like, that's how it worked. As the government employed everyone, directly or indirectly, it was by extension assumed that employers knew what was best for their workers. If workers and their union representatives dared to disagree, they were declared counter-revolutionary and punished accordingly. This is just said. Like, this is just said. Can you give an example? No. Like, no, you can't. Like, find me the example. And then what they'll do, if you ask them to actually find an example, is that they will, they'll point out the purge, the Great Purge. And it's literally like, fuck, dude, first of all, the Soviet, like, the Soviet structure had many purges throughout its history, right? It's how it got rid of fascists in their ranks. Our own military is beginning to try to do a purge of its own ranks. So what's wrong with it? And during the Great Purge, that happened because a high-level official was assassinated, and they routed out a fucking literal conspiracy to assassinate Stalin himself. Like, these guys are clueless, delusional madmen, right? Like, the person writing this is illiterate at best. Like, at best, he's illiterate. The idea that somebody actually read this in the National Post and went, yeah, print it! Print it! These are all facts! All of this is yep, absolutely, that's what happened! Tells you that the National Post is just a fucking rag. Worse than the National Enquirer. Here we go. In Maoist China, the implementation of socialism led to deteriorating working conditions for urban laborers, just said, who saw their real wages decrease. A link to... Ooh, this is actually, like, this might actually be a thing. I know, buddy. I know. A History of the People's Republic from Maurice Meisner, a white dude. This is written in 1977. Wow. They're actually linking to an actual source. This is actually, I like this. I like this. This gives the opportunity to actually, like, right away though, right? Western imperialism and the weakness of Chinese social classes. Like, let me guess. I'm just going to guess right away. First sentence, it's going to be something really fucking stupid. The history of revolution in modern China begins in the mid-19th century with a Christian peasant rebellion that failed and climaxes, although it is by no means the revolutionary conclusion, with a Marxist-led peasant revolution that succeeded in the mid-20th century. Significantly, the ideologies of both the Taiping Rebellion and the Communist Revolution, nearly a century later, were drawn not from the millennial Chinese tradition, but from modern Western intellectual sources. Here you go. Was a modern disciple of Karl Marx. Okay. But like an odd sort of trying to take credit for the Chinese Revolution. It was Westerner. It's Westerns. It's Westerners. Yeah. Oh yeah, so publish your book so he can't defend himself, right? Like that's the best. Anyway, so let's take the word of a white dude who probably was publishing something anyway. Despite rising incidentally, does this sound familiar? Who saw their real wages decrease despite rising productivity? Is that something that we're familiar with in capitalism? Is that something we're all living with right now? Right? Yeah. I've experienced in my life real wage decreases despite rising productivity. That's happening right fucking now. So this idea that you're turning around and saying, and now it's China, like it's literally what's happening right fucking now. You deluded waste bin of a person. The more, guys, I gotta tell you, I'm so happy I'm doing this. It feels so good to rag on these fucking capitalists. Oh my god, fuck these guys. The more they worked, the more government appropriated their profits for their labor. As a result, an unprecedented wave of strikes and protests erupted in 1956. This was quickly and violently suppressed. This is just said. I wonder if this guy's gonna talk about that. Does this guy even talk about that? Here, something like that is definitely going to be sourced, right? No. Oh, here we go. Economics of the Great Leap Forward. Like, no, you would think that like a full-scale strike and rebellion would actually be like talked about seriously, but no, these things are just said, right? Yeah, 30 million people died of famine. Yeah, 30 million people. 30 million people died in a famine. It happened. Yup, for sure that was real. No, there was no refugee crisis. No, nobody talked about it at the time. Right? Nobody talked about it at the time. But there was. Yeah, it happened. Labor unrest percolated throughout the Maoist area, I guess, but was constantly quelled with the help of the secret police and the People's Liberation Army. While citizens were theoretically guaranteed to the right to strike, because that maintained the optics of a workers' paradise, there was no expectation that this right would be upheld. Yet 6 sextillion people died. As has been noted by Yixing Wu, a leading academic on Maoist China and a former professor of mine, in socialist system, there's no real distinction between economic activism and political activism. A strike against an employer is automatically seen as a strike against the government. To ask for a reprieve from brutal working conditions is to question the very legitimacy of socialism. There's literally strikes going on in China right now. The lay flat movement. Like, this is blisteringly illiterate. Like, you've got to actually try to be this illiterate. With this in mind, it is unsurprising that socialist countries have reflexively responded to labor activism with repression. Like, as if capitalist countries don't do that. But okay, protecting the regime's legitimacy trumps workers' rights every time, as if capitalist countries aren't doing that. Socialists often criticize capitalism for its plutocratic tendencies. We're literally in an oligarch, but okay. They are right to do so, because capitalism has flaws. This is something that they're doing, by the way. That they're finally getting to a point as like as writers where they're willing to even say out loud that capitalism has flaws, right? Which I recently listened to an interview from Richard Wolff. He was on Chapo, and he pointed out like the field of economics in the West is so deeply flawed and so deeply incapable of being rational and reasonable that most university institutions, had to erect a secondary economics system called business school, right? Where essentially business owners and people who were actually interested in real economics said of the economics field, they were like, yeah, none of this is real. Like, this is all bullshit, and it's not useful, right? If I tried to take all of this into the real world, I'd get fucked, right? So I need something real, and I need people who are trained in real, or else we're all gonna get fucked. And so they create business schools where they actually talk about what's going on in business and how to do business, right? And it's like completely like if someone comes out of an institution holding on to an economics degree in the West, they are illiterate on purpose, by design, as admitted by the institutions who are providing the degree themselves. Because why? They've created a whole other institution called business school to actually address this illiteracy. Like, and I say this as a capitalist who hates dogmatism. However, if you believe that capitalism is evil because it allows the wealthy to quietly corrupt the state, then it's hard to see how socialism is the answer. The latter merely formalizes the alliance between wealth and political power and hides that unholy marriage beneath utopian rhetoric. Literally describing capitalism and then calling it socialism. Like that's all that this guy is doing. Like, describe capitalism, call it socialism. Whatever the faults of capitalist states, they do not automatically treat strikes as existential threats. Did you guys know that the first aerial bombardment was against striking workers in coal mines? Did you know that? Did you know that? Do you know about the Battle of Blair Mountain? Right? This guy's illiterate. Like, blisteringly illiterate. Like, it's shameful that this article is being published. That this article alone discredits the National Post. Like, if you have somebody who's talking points out of the National Post, like, you're talking to someone who has brain worms. Like, this is as bad as reefer madness, right? Like, capitalists literally send armed people, armed military forces into striking encampments and open fire against them, right? In the 1960s, for Christ's sakes, there were protests on a university campus and kids got shot. During the Occupy Wall Street movement, we all remember the kids that were huddled down and they sprayed them, right? We remember this, right? Like, that what a blisteringly illiterate statement to make. That discredits this author completely and the institution that's publishing it. Like, no, bud. Like, that's a brutal thing to say. Like, it's a brutal thing to say. Like, I expect that kind of bullshit for these xenophobes when it comes to talking about the Soviet Union or China, but for God's sakes, like, you cannot deny the history of labor struggle in your own country. Like, brutal. Just brutal. Ironically, capitalism's celebration of Darwinian competition, right, might makes right, he's just admitting that he's a fascist, it's fine, keeps employers relatively weak by keeping them divided. Again, just this blisteringly moronic idea that there's no such thing as monopoly capitalism. Competition is typically considered pro-business. But in truth, nothing is more alluring to a business than a government-backed monopoly that is capitalism. Like, while monopolies do arise in capitalism to the detriment of workers, they can be dealt with by getting rid of government regulations that create barriers to entry into the marketplace. This is delusional. Like, this is deluded. You've got to actually have brain worms to believe this. You've actually got to have, like, a brain that is made of worms that they themselves are all dying and, like, festering. Like, you genuinely believe that the way to deal with monopolies is to get rid of government regulations that create barriers to entry into the marketplace? Do you not fucking understand what monopolies do? That if a tiny competitor comes up, the monopoly absorbs them? Do you not understand that? Obviously he doesn't. Like, obviously he doesn't. He's so illiterate. Or using antitrust laws to break them up. There you go. Here's the real thing, right? This is what actually happens, right? That's what happened but the problem with doing this, right? The problem with doing this is that the business class is so powerful and overwhelming that to gain the political force in order to confront the monopoly, right, takes so much time and effort that by the time you smash it up, they just move over and create a new one. That's what Bill Gates did, right? Bill Gates did that right in front of your eyes, just right in front of your face, right? They broke up his monopoly and literally, like within 5 years, he had another monopoly, right? Monopolies are a fixable bug in capitalism, but an inherent feature of socialism. Again, call capitalism socialism, right? Blame others of what you are guilty of. If you care about workers, the best thing to do is improve capitalism by mitigating its monopolistic impulses. Impossible to do. The system's designed to do that, which in practice means supporting free enterprise and competition, which can't happen in a capitalist structure, right? Embracing these core capitalist values not only suppresses the private sector's bargaining power, it also increases economic efficiency to everyone's benefit, which is why the system is in freefall collapse. Worker-friendly capitalism is possible, as illustrated by many European countries, especially those in Scandinavia. Like, literally the entire article is about socialism is bad, and then literally like the most socialist countries that are still allowing, like, the countries that call themselves democratic socialism is his example, right? Like, no, in contrast, no humane example of socialism exists, despite many ruinous attempts. Literally China right now. Like, literally China right now. Like, you have to be xenophobically, like, totally outside the capability to see things with your own eyes to make this claim. This is unbelievable that they're actually making the attempt to make these claims. Like, and I think you're onto it, Barnabas, right? Their readers don't. Like, their readers don't read. Like, if you are, like, I can't, the people who are reading the National Post and believing that it is a credible source of information are not different at all from people who watched Reefer Madness and thought that it was real. It's the same. Like, this is where we're at now. And when you encounter these people who regurgitate this bullshit from the National Post, the second you show that it's false, because it's easy to show this stuff to be false. Like, it's easy, right? They just retreat into absurdism. That's what happens every time. They just retreat into absurdism because there's been, it doesn't fit their brain rot. It doesn't fit, right? Yeah, monopolies are a fixable bug in capitalism. All right, name one capitalist society that didn't have monopolies, right? And the system is designed to be it. Capitalist countries pretending that citizens are allowed to step out of line, question their system on the backlash of state terror, but China. Well, and Stalin's Soviet Union as well. Like, these people don't actually want to talk about these countries legitimately, right? They're not interested in that. Yet someone told me the famine resulted in more deaths than both World War combined and people had to resort to eating rats. Where's the refugee crisis? This is all I say to these guys now. Where's the refugee crisis then? Right? If that's true, where are all the Chinese refugees in India, in Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan? Like, Chinese people should have blown out of China, right? Just like, it doesn't exist. Just doesn't exist. Post-media print is losing money big time. I hope they go out of business. They really need to get bent. Well, and this is the thing, is that now their whole strategy is just like, embrace the crazed, insane right. The only people who are actually paying these guys, right? I'm bleeding. No. The only people who are actually paying for this dreck anymore, right, are just an insane, crazed right wing. And that the problem of what's going on in today's media landscape is that people are not publishing what is true, or they're not even interested in publishing what is true. They're publishing for what is paid for, right? Which is one of the inherent flaws of the capitalist model of doing news business. You can't actually tell the truth, right? Because we've all heard the phrase, right? The truth hurts. Well, no one's going to pay to get hurt, right? They're going to pay for these comfortable lies. And that's all this is. It's just comfortable lies. Like, this is This is grotesque what they're doing. This like overt, obvious bullshit that is so easily falsifiable. It's childish. Like, it's brutal. Yeah, capitalism breeds innovation in the way the Pinkerton, the working folks. Exactly. Good to see you grinning, bud. It's defensible to claim that capitalism has killed 2 billion people the last 300 years. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care to do the number counting of like how many people it killed versus how many people or all that kind of stuff. Like, I care to see like how many people are living in the streets right now. Really. Like, go to the Soviet Union, go to Russia under Putin. How many people are living in the streets right now? Oh, is it nobody? Because even fucking Putin understands, like, yeah, give people houses. Like, yeah, we've got a house, give them a house, right? How many people in China? Oh, is it fucking nobody, right? Because China is like, yeah, house, right? Street, house, right? Like, it is actually an easy problem to solve. Like, this is the thing that these capitalists don't want you to understand, is that homelessness is incredibly easy to solve. It's easy to solve. Literally, we would need to take one of those wickets at Service Canada, put someone at the wicket, right? And have their entire job be, someone walks in the door, they say, I don't have a house. You say, fill out this paper with your information. And then you go to one of the people who are hoarding 1,000 houses and you say, we're taking this house and we're giving it to that guy. And when they cry about it, you say, fuck off and die. Story over. Like, story over. And it is that easy. How do you think China does it? How do you think Russia does it? How do you think Cuba does it? Like, go to that place, talk to that guy, you get a house. Story over, right? And they don't want you to know that, because if people started to do that, it would destroy the rental market. You're going to destroy the rental market. Good. Like, that's what we want. We want these worthless parasites that are of no value to anyone to be chased out of the system completely, right? And we want homeless people to have houses. That's what we want. Yeah, exactly. But capitalists want to keep people desperate, so they'll work for barely livable wages. Yeah, that's the idea. I argue with right-wingers a lot, and they hammer the 100 million dead propaganda. Oh, if you get hit with the 100 million dead propaganda grinning, just literally look at them and say, where is the refugee crisis? Find me the refugee crisis. You're telling me 100 million people died. A famine happened. 100 million people died. 3 times the number of people who live in Canada died. The entire city of New York died, right? So that means if you have 100 million dead, that means you have another 100 million. You have another 100 million fleeing, right? If you have 100 million dead, you have 100 million hungry who are fleeing, for sure. For fuck's sakes, that what is the population of China in 1960? You're telling me 1/6, 1/7 of the population of China, 1 out of every 7 people died of a famine in China at this time, and there's just no refugee crisis. It just doesn't exist. What the fuck are you talking about? Also, incidentally, show me anybody. Show me one person during this period of time, the 1960s, right? 100 million is the black book of communism propaganda, includes all of the 20th century. So, it's the same story. Show me the refugee crisis. Get specific with them. 100 million dead by famine. Okay, where? Like, if it's China, where's the refugee crisis? Like, where's the refugee crisis? And if it's Russia, you say, well, why were they sending grain in then? Like, you literally have to have, like, nail in your head, just, like, eyes crossed, like, the communism can Burma! Like, you gotta be on that level at this point. You do. Like, it's straight up. It's straight up reefer madness at this point. It's just reefer madness. Like, crazed, deluded nonsense. Like, and crazed is the word to use. Like it, on the same level as, like, the aliens built the pyramids. The aliens built the pyramids. That's what happened. It couldn't be brown people. Brown people can't make pyramids. They're not good enough. They're not as good as white people. So it had to have been aliens. It's the same shit. Yeah, it is the most basic knee-jerk anti-communist response because they can't think farther than that, right? They don't want to. Because if they actually have to think, then it means, like, that causes them pain, right? That causes them physical pain to actually think and use their brain for any period of time, right? Yeah, it counts the deaths of Nazis, right? Exactly. That's a good point, Mock, right? If somebody's actually holding the Black Book of Communism, right? Literally, like, that book counts Nazi deaths as it's part of its death thing. Like, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Like, you can just be like, bye-bye. Like, every Nazi should be killed. I know, buddy. I know. Nazis, right? I'm with you, bud. I'm with you. Do you want to come up? Do you want to say hi to the people? Do you want to say hi to the people? No, not today. Not now. What are good books to read about Chinese Revolution that aren't propaganda? I mean, there's been a lot of good work that have come out of the Indian universities, believe it or not. I myself are still learning about the Maoist period and the Chinese Revolution. Honestly, I actually do guarantee that, like, a book like this is actually probably not bad. Like, really. Like, it's going to have its Western bias. And this is what I always say about all this kind of stuff. As long as you know what their bias is, most information is actually good. Right? As long as you know what their bias is. Like, I bet you anything, if you read this, you'd probably have a pretty decent understanding of what was going on, right? And if you read something and you sort of think to yourself, that seems a bit odd, just, like, go to the back of the book. And any of the intellectual, like, here you go. Like, here's all his sources, right? And, like, a book like this is actually like, look what he's done, right? Oh, this is the index. This is the index. There you go. Like, and if something seems a little incoherent, you can search all this shit, right? But, like, hard to pretend like this isn't going to have some kind of information in it, right? Hard to pretend like this isn't going to, like, at least give you, like, a broad general picture of things, you know? And, but pays to remember, right? Pays to remember while you're reading it that, like, loading. Pays to remember that this comes from the Free Press, a division of Simon and Schuster, right? Maurice Meisner, right? He's like a white dude, right? So, like, oh, I know, buddy. I know. Like, manufactured in the United States, right? And this is my general feeling about, like, propaganda and news and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, the best propaganda is the propaganda you don't know is propaganda. And it's very difficult for a book like this to be propaganda because you know exactly who's doing it. You know exactly where it's coming from, right? And as was pointed out earlier by someone, like, Mao dies 1976, this book comes out 1977. How's that for convenient timing? Oh yeah, and that's actually a really good point, Grinning. Real good point. Mao, Deng, and Xi are all authors too. Oh, for sure. Honestly, if you contact the Chinese embassy, this is true. If you contact the Chinese embassy looking for work written by Mao, Deng, and Xi, they'll send it to you. Straight up. I've actually been meaning to do that. I've talked to plenty of people online who have done exactly this. And they'll send you work just by Xi Jinping and Deng and Mao and all these guys. Right? They want people to know. They want people to know. So if you want like real good work, Mao, Deng, and Xi right now, and also like China is beginning to produce, it's beginning to produce Hollywood level film and television, right? So for example, the Great Awakening, China show. So like China's Great Awakening, Age of Awakening. Here you go. Age of Awakening. That's what it is. A Chinese revolutionary drama becomes a state-produced television series, right? And it's gonna be like state propaganda, for sure, right? Absolutely. But like they're beginning to tell these stories of like, and I've seen clips from it. It looks good. Looks real good. If anyone says, but China is capitalist, you show them the video in the live stream. Yeah, China's capitalist. I can't even believe like that anyone would actually believe this. Like China is capitalist. Like China opens its markets to capitalist investment, but ultimately the people who have the final say are the state, right? It's the reason why like China has like actually executed like 40 billionaires since it started doing this. Right? Like, it doesn't really pay to be a billionaire in China. The biggest form of capitalist propaganda is the idea that anyone can come from abject poverty and become insanely wealthy. It's powerful because it's technically true, but it's very unlikely. Yeah. Like, one of the things that capitalists don't like to talk about is the idea of inevitabilities, right? That it is an inevitability that, like, if you have 100 million people, one of them is going to have that story happen to them where they're just like grinding away on something and then it kind of pops out and it works, right? That's not, and that's going to happen no matter what. Like that's the thing that I think that is not well understood is that like that kind of thing is going to happen no matter what. It does, and like that's going to happen in a monarchy. That's going to happen in a dictatorship. That's going to happen in communism. That's going to happen in capitalism. It's going to happen everywhere. It's inevitable that someone is going to be doing something, and then it's going to come together. It's going to work. They're going to amass a fortune, and they're going to kick off and go into the stratosphere. It's an inevitability, right? It's unavoidable. And it's not because of capitalism. It's not because of communism. It's not because, right? It's just that's life, baby. Like this system that we live in, and I don't mean this system capitalism, like the shit we're creating. I'm talking about the larger system, like of the quantum energy that we fucking live in, is way more complex than we think. Way more complex than we think. I know, buddy. I know. Quantum energy. So Nazis and quantum energy sets them off. It's way more complex than we think. It's way more complex than we think. And we don't know anything about it. Like, we know literally nothing about it. We're just getting to the point now where we're saying, yeah, it exists. Like, that's where we're at. Right? We don't know anything. So this idea that like, yeah, the capitalist model is what's responsible for all of this benefits, and anything that's bad is communism. It's so childish. Like it's the most reductive way that a person can think. Which is why we're struggling with like trans rights, and why we struggle with homosexuality, and why we're struggling with all this stuff, because we refuse to acknowledge that like, hey, this place is complex as balls. Like, this place is complex as crazy pants, right? Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, send it around, Patreon down below. Please consider donating $1, right? Most importantly at this point, guys, share. Share this around. Let people know I exist. YouTube is throttling me. YouTube is for sure throttling me. If David Dole is complaining about how he's being throttled, I'm being throttled for sure. And I want to get to that 1,000. I want to hit the 1,000. Gotta hit that 1,000, man. Yeah. Hey, John, you want to talk about handouts? Oh, do I ever want to talk about handouts? Check the live stream. This is coming from our Patreon. Here we go. Let's...
Policies. In America, you can change political parties, but you can't change policies. In China, you cannot change the party, but you can change policies. So in the 65 or 66 years, China is being run by one single party, yet the political changes that have taken place in China in this past 66 years have been wider and broader and greater than probably any other major country in modern memory.
So in that time, China ceased to be communist. Is that what you're saying?
Well, China is a market economy, and it's a vibrant market economy, but it is not a capitalist country. Here's why. There's no way a group of billionaires could control the Politburo, as billionaires control American policymaking. So in China, you have a vibrant market economy, but capital does not rise above political authority. Capital does not have enshrined rights. In America, capital, the interest of capital and capital itself has risen above the American nation. The political authority cannot check the power of capital. And that's why America is a capitalist country, but China is not.
Boom. That's exactly right. That's probably as well said as I've ever heard it said, but it's exactly accurate, right? Like, yeah, like it's a market economy, but like I hate this definition that's put forward by capitalists, right? This definition that markets are what determine what makes a country capitalist or not. Every society has had markets, right? Every society has had markets. Like, there's no such thing as a society that doesn't have markets. Everybody has markets. Tribal nations have markets. Slave societies have markets. Kings had markets, right? Theocracies have markets. Everybody uses markets, right? This is like saying that because you use swords, you must be a tyrant. Like, it's so absolutely detached from what is real, right? That the defining quality of what makes capitalism is who controls the means of production and thereby the political strata, right? Who controls the means of production and then uses these means of production to control the political parties, right? And here's a fellow who put it very plainly and very clearly, right? No, China, the political parties and the political will don't respond to the capitalists. The capitalists respond to the policymakers. And that's the difference. Exactly. Who owns the means of production is key. And can China just liberate us already? They're not going to do that, dude. They're not interested in that. Like, they're straight up just like, okay, if you guys say so. Oh, you want us to make your shit for you? Okay. As long as you stay over there. Stay over there. And, like, what China's getting ready for now, like, China is going to absolutely send troops into Taiwan, right? And there's nothing the Americans can do about it. Like, it's coming, get ready for it, right? Like, it's going to happen. That China is going to just send a whole bunch of boats into the strait here, right? Right into here. And they're just going to send some troop transports over to Taiwan, right? It is highly unlikely that Taiwan will put up any kind of a fight whatsoever. And they will march troops into Taipei. And they will just be like, ah, good. And that will be the end of the conversation. It will simply be over. And the Americans will forevermore be like, oh, what an injustice! Oh, while literally the entire rest of the international community is going to go, what? China moved troops within its own borders. What's the problem? Get ready for it. It's coming. Capitalism. 1, markets exist. Private ownership of the means of production. 3, capitalism, accumulation by individuals and firms is the primary motivator. Yeah. Well, and I would put a 4 on that, which is to say that capital owns the political structure, right? That the political structure in America is owned by capital, right? And in explicit ways. Like, how many times does Nancy Pelosi need to say it before it actually sinks in? Like, Nancy Pelosi has said out loud on lots of occasions that, like, no, we're all capitalists here. Like, we're capitalists. Like, we respond to capital. We do what business wants us to do. Like, she's outright said it several times. So it's like, what do you need? Whereas, like, China fucking executes billionaires, dude. Like, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to live in a country where billionaires actually face consequences? But that would be authoritarian. Having rules and then following them, that would be authoritarian. So, from the live stream, from the Patreons, BC announces grants up to $10K for businesses shut down by pandemic measures. That's actually good news. But I am more or less of the opinion, like, just give this money to people. Just give this money to people. Right? Just give this money to people. Right? Money to people. Right? And if those people want to start businesses, Jack Ma hasn't been seen in public with that big mouth of his for a long time. Well, Tinker, this particular story is of interest because the Xi Jinping, who is elected on a platform of anti-corruption, has actually gone into his own ranks, into his own section, his own faction, and especially is going after someone who is considered one of his right-hand men, right? Someone literally in his inner circle who has connections to Jack Ma. And so I think this is what's going on with Jack Ma, is that he's just laying low because there's a pretty serious corruption investigation going on that involve high-level officials. Like, we are talking about literally Xi Jinping, this guy, like, right here. Like, imagine if, like, Joe Biden was doing a corruption investigation into Kamala Harris. And that's, like, pretty similar to what we're talking about. And, like, yeah, it's so fucking stupid. Whenever the West calls, like, Stalin or Xi Jinping dictators, it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're such a fucking embarrassment. It's so embarrassing. Like, even I remember there was this great interview that Michael Bloomberg did, right? And the journalist said, like, oh yeah, but Xi Jinping's a dictator. And Michael Bloomberg was like, no, he's not. What are you talking about? No, Xi Jinping needs to respond to the people who elect him, and, like, elect him. And he's like, yeah, did you, like, and Michael Bloomberg is, like, shutting it down. He's like, dictator, what are you talking about? That's why they've switched over to authoritarian, right? They're not using the word dictator because it's childish and stupid and falsifiable on the face of it. It's easy to falsify. Like, literally one Google search. Like, you got to show, if you can show one image to falsify a claim, you got to stop using that claim, right? Like, if somebody literally can just be like, National People's Congress, dope, dictatorship, right? Like, it's so falsifiable, like right in front of your face. So what they've done now is they've shifted from dictatorship to authoritarian, which, near as I can tell, means having laws and enforcing them. Like, that's what authoritarian seems to mean. It's not only billionaires and corruption, they are actually cracking down on inequality. Yep. Look up Breakthrough News China interviews. I know what you're talking about, Tinker. Like, they recently went through and banned private funding of educational facilities to create a singular kind of education system, right? But the elections and surveys are rigged, even if they're conducted by Western universities such as Harvard. Yeah, Harvard's big polling, like, that was huge. Harvard had a huge poll. It was 17 years they were polling in China. 17 years they were polling in China. And, like, and the results couldn't be clearer. The Chinese people not only were in favor of their government, but favorability of the government grew over the 17-year period. Like, pretty straight line, too. I mean, like, yeah. Just give people money. Give people money, and then they will create businesses, right? Like, fuck this guy. Fuck this. Yeah, and a result of all this craziness, by the way, right? U.S. and China life expectancy. Right? You're starting to see significant changes in the United States. China and Taiwan will be like the AP video. China and Macau, head over China troops. Yeah, it's total fucking bullshit, dude. It's just getting ridiculous. Well, I mean, we are ridiculous. From the Beaverton, I really love this headline. Doug Ford's Ontario revealed to be alternate universe shown to suicidal man by Christmas angel. Reports indicate that dire circumstances throughout Doug Ford's Ontario are actually due to it being a fantastical alternate reality created by a Christmas angel in order to teach a desperate local man about the worth of his own life. Last evening, 38-year-old Greg Barley considered jumping from the Bloor Viaduct Bridge in order to leave life insurance money to his family before being approached by Clancy, Barley's guardian angel sent from heaven. In order to teach Barley about the positive effect he's had on his community, Clancy magically whisked the downtrodden man to an alternate Ontario where he was never born. Sources have revealed this nightmarish parallel reality to be Doug Ford's Ontario. "Well, why is everyone scrambling over each other to find booster appointments?" asked the perplexed Barley, shocked to find that this hellish version of Ontario did not have a centralized, easy-to-use government booking system. "People are lining up for hours for rapid tests and shots, just to be turned away. What the hell kind of madness is this?" Witnesses on the scene have reported that Barley, previously a pillar of his own community, was shocked to discover a harsher, meaner version of Ontario that had been corrupted by the machinations of a heartless, bitter millionaire. "Are you telling me this Ford fella actually cut public health funding during a pandemic?" Barley added, shocked. "What kind of scurvy spider would do such a thing?" In addition to the substandard COVID response, eyewitnesses report that Barley had been similarly horrified by the Ford's timeline rampant housing inequality. "Whoa, back where I come from, people can afford to buy a decent home in Barley Park," muttered the beleaguered man, reading through listings for $1,000 per square foot condos built by Ford donors. "Plus, we've had $10 a day haircare for years. What's you waiting for?" As Greg Barley ran down the street, horrified at Ford's proposals for waterfront casinos and hot jazz establishments, onlookers remarked at his cross-dimensional existential crisis. "It never really occurred to me that Doug Ford's Ontario was the bad timeline, but yeah, that tracks," mused one weary holiday shopper. Barley's spirits reportedly dropped to their lowest point when his angel revealed that his wife, Marion, had become a librarian, only to have her job slashed by cuts from the Ontario government. "I want to live again!" Barley yelled to the heavens. "I want to live again! Back in my own universe where Doug Ford is just some angry crank with a sticker factory!" In a related story, 3 Christmas ghosts who arrived at Ford's home proved unable to show him the error of his ways after discovering the premier had previously fled to his Muskoka cottage to avoid work. That's a good one. That's a good one. The Beaverton, man, just constantly just like one hit after the other. What do you guys think of my impression of, what's his name? From It's a Wonderful Life. "I want to live again!" I feel like I'm doing okay. It's like a bee, right? Oh, what's up? What's up? You want to come up, buddy? You want to come up? Come up. Come on up. Say hello to the masses. Let's have a grumble. Come up. You want to come up? 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 Up. No. Running away. This guy. He wants all the love, but doesn't want any attention. No. Get rid of it. Okay. Oh, worth reporting. This comes from the Patreons again in the Discord. Thank you so much, guys. I'm trying to get better at reporting what you guys are putting in the Discord because it's all good stuff. Dante White killing ex-U.S. officer found guilty of manslaughter. So if you guys remember, this is a couple years ago. There was a story where I believe it was during the George Floyd protests. This woman, a police officer, went to pull her taser out in order to tase someone and instead pulled out her revolver and shot them, right? That's why the charge is manslaughter, which she has been found guilty of. 2 counts of manslaughter in the fatal April shooting of a black motorist, Dante Wright, which set off mass racial justice protests. Prosecutors argued by mistaking. Honestly, my opinion on this whole story is why are cops walking around in big protests or anything with pistols in the first place? Like, if they have tasers, they should have tasers. Straight up. I'm a big fan of disarming the police, honestly. I do feel like my heart does kind of go out to her a little bit because it unlike the Derek Chauvin case, which was a clear-cut case of murder. Like, the guy wanted to murder that black guy and he did, right? In a very brutal fashion, right? Compared to that, this woman did, like, it was an error, right? Of course, and they're not showing you the video, which I find interesting, but I remember watching the video because they had her camera, right? I remember watching the video and just being like, why are you drawing a weapon at all? Like, there were like 2 other police officers that were dealing with this guy, right? Like, why are you drawing a weapon at all? Is what I thought, right? Like, there's literally 3 of you. Why are you drawing a weapon? That was my big question that whole time. So, and given like the absurdity of the Kyle Rittenhouse decision, which wasn't probably one of the most absurd decisions in American legal history, honestly. Like, just a white kid can cross state borders with a rifle and open fire on people, and because they also had a weapon, declare it as self-defense. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's madness. But, okay, whatever you say. Oh, I know, buddy. I know. I love you too. I love you too, buddy. What a good little boy. What a good little boy. Oops. I'm fucking everything up. Everything's terrible. Oh my god. Capitalism is quite literally going to destroy the planet in order to make more money for the small percentage of people who own production, so no. I don't think it is not perfect, but the best system we can have. Yeah, she was training a junior officer and wonder why cops are so useless. For sure, Ruth. For sure. Like, there's not enough training. Like, really. Like, in Canada, we insist that people have, like, a college degree or something, and that helps vet a little bit. But, like, the amount of training that you receive to become a police officer is basically negligible. Like, and some of the states, it's literally like an 8-week course, and here's your gun, off you go, right? Like, I'm like, well, excuse me? I was watching the protests on the day at the live site. Dante was still on the ground, just like 2 blocks away. Yeah. I'm gonna push this over here. Oh yeah, this is a great one, actually. True today, but true before today also. People are right that homelessness is absolutely a choice, but the common mistake is not realizing that it's a choice made by policymakers, not the people deprived of housing. It's a choice made by those in power. The leading causes of homelessness stem from political policies, not personal choices. As you are likely aware, the top 4 leading causes of homelessness, lack of affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, and low wages, result from policy flaws, not personal failures. In case this matter is unclear, here's a breakdown explaining why. Lack of affordable housing is a problem rooted in national infrastructure. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the United States is currently short about 7.2 million affordable homes. Forbes explains that the supply will never adequately meet demand at the current production pace, which is about 110,000 affordable units per year. When you adjust these estimates to coincide with zoning restrictions, land regulations, racism in the housing market as a byproduct of redlining, and a withering middle class fading into the background of America, it's clear to see that one lone individual could never solve this issue. This makes it a flawed policy, not a personal choice. Every time a luxury high-rise goes up in a place where an affordable home could have been, people in positions of power are choosing homelessness. Unemployment. In the wake of international COVID-19 pandemic, millions of people are out of a job. Unemployment rates are inching down, but that's of little comfort to the 9.7 million currently unemployed Americans. Most of them were already living paycheck to paycheck when the national economy experienced a major shutdown. According to The Balance, cyclical, structural, and frictional causes all play a pivotal role in the national dwindling workforce. Reasons for unemployment range from technological advancement that replace employees with machines to outsourcing and low consumer demand. Even in situations where workers are voluntarily leaving the workforce, see The Great Resignation for more on this topic, they are doing so because they're not being paid a living wage. Incidentally, this is number 4 on our list. The current state of unemployment is evidence of a whole host of flawed policies, not personal choices. So every time you see a toll booth operated by a robot or a manufacturer moving jobs out of the country under the NAFTA agreement, know that people in positions of power are choosing homelessness. Poverty. We live in an alleged capitalistic society, which means poverty looks like a choice. It isn't. Anthony P. Carnaval of the Georgetown Research Center on Education and the Workforce says his study shows that to succeed in America, it's better to be born rich than smart. His intense academic study, Born to Win, Schooled to Lose, used data collected from approximately 3 million households via the U.S. Census Bureau and 2 other separate data collecting agencies and examined socioeconomic class analysis over multiple years. In his words, what was uncovered was the following disheartening truth. The most talented disadvantaged children have a lower chance of academic and early career success than the least talented affluent children. As you can see, poverty is not a personal failure, but a policy flaw. This means every time a 5-year-old child is named as a defendant in an eviction case, or a new law is introduced to criminalize the poor, people in positions of power are yet again choosing homelessness. Low wages. Wages have remained devastatingly stagnant for 4 decades consecutively. Is this a reflection of poor work ethic? Some claim we're just a lazy generation. Statistics, however, are fickle things, as the numbers simply don't lie. According to the Washington Post and a study recently released by the Economic Policy Institute, political decisions by elected officials are largely responsible for a collapse in pay for the bottom 90% of the labor market since 1979. Now, with housing prices and inflation rates vastly outpacing employment compensation, it's clear that the housing crisis and the homeless crisis are not the results of individual flaws. They are massive failures of public policy falling like a house of cards. Every time you see a dilapidated building a few feet away from a homeless encampment, remember that this is further evidence that people in positions of power are choosing homelessness. Get fucked. Surround the halls of power. Surround them. Get millions of people and just like... Hey Dan, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. I mean, like, Victini, like, very different Canada versus U.S. for police training, but still our cops are stupid hotheads because think about the people who are attracted to policing, right? Who are the people that would be attracted to this job in the first place, right? Like I know cops who are like in it because it's the family, right? My dad was a cop. I have an uncle that's a cop, that kind of thing. But like, I get a gun on my hip and I get to wear a uniform and I get to be a big guy. And when I talk, people have to listen to me, right? Like, what kind of person is going to be attracted to that job in the first place, right? In my area, a developer tried to put in several hundred affordable units and the community absolutely lost their shit. Yeah, right? And that's part of it, eh? Like, we just like... The Karens have taken over. It's like we literally are like a society of children that are just like, I don't want poor people in my neighborhood. Like every day I walk down this street and there's a dude. I think he's housed here. I think, but he's obviously on disability or something, right? He sits on the street corner all day long, right? And I walk by this guy, and I say hi. Seems like a totally nice guy, right? And there's another fellow that lives in this building. He's a garbage picker. He goes around. His name's Bob, right? He picks cans out of garbage bins and all this kind of stuff. Nice guy. I say hi to him. Everything's fine, right? There's another fellow. He does the same job. He's an asshole. He is. He's just like obviously got something going on and it makes him a total asshole to everybody. But you know what? If that's the worst thing that I got to deal with, so be it. That guy deserves a house over his head, right? The people who are actually saying out loud, we should let people be homeless because I don't want to deal with dirty people. Like, it's gross. It's gross. But it's where our society is. We're a society of children. How is it we've recovered all the jobs lost during the pandemic and simultaneously have a labor shortage? I've been online looking for work. There are no jobs. Obvious propaganda. I mean, there's also this element of something that is going on, which is that they are using the labor shortage and all of this as an excuse to raise prices, right? Inflation is a big one. Right? Like, we're starting to get studies coming out showing that, like, no, you're not, these prices aren't going up because of inflation. You're just raising your prices. And then saying, like, inflation. Like, we're dealing with rapacious psychopaths. Like, they will lie about everything. Right? And they'll tell big, gigantic lies. I'm going to star this one. This is a good one. Actually, I'm going to go to the source article. I'm going to star this one because I really like this. This was really nice. That was a good read. Forget Manchin. Sanders says entire Democratic Party must show guts against corporate interests. Ha! Ha! The entire reason I wanted to show this is just be like, yeah, they'll get right on that, I'm sure of it. Supportive housing and tiny home communities are the solution for the most vulnerable. You know, Dan, man, I agree. Like, it's at this stage in the game, it's hard to miss. Really. Like, it's really hard to miss. Like, how are you missing it? You know? And a lot of these, like, homeless people, like, and you probably know better than I do, dude, but, like, the tiny homes that get built for these guys, they're like, yeah, this is okay. Like, this is a step up, for sure. Right? And the reason why... There's a fellow here in Ontario that was building these things. Right, a carpenter. He was just building tiny homes for people, right? And he gets stopped, and the excuse they use is because these are a fire hazard. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, no, they're not. Like, no, they're fucking not. Then, if they're a fire hazard, then give them a fucking extinguisher. Shut the fuck up. Like, what? No, they're not. Like, if those things are fire hazards, then like literally every house is a fire hazard. Oh, yeah. Ford's missing it because his third chin's in the way. Yeah, exactly. Dude needs to stop eating Timmy's. Dude needs to stop eating Timmy's, man. He's going to have a heart attack, eh? I'm looking forward to it. Fucking vile piece of crap. 8 guys in this country have more money than 4 billion people combined, but yeah, the mom buying groceries with food stamps is the problem. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Another show, right? Not comparing it to China, but like this is a fairly substantial decline, right? Like that's a big decline in life expectancy, and like we've we're saying that it'll be an endemic, but we don't actually know what this virus is doing. Like it could be weakening our immune systems. Like it could be causing lots and lots of problems for us. Like this decline could be like a permanent feature, right? That like we're just gonna lose like 5-10 years off our lives because we created this endemic situation, right? Because again, like this whole place is way more complex than we like to believe, right? Way more complex. Yeah, he got stopped because it wasn't their idea. Yeah, fire hazard, more like we can't profit off it. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I gotta bring this back around. I read this maybe a month or two ago, but it's come back around. Like it's going back around social media. This was published September 14th, 2022 in The Entrepreneur. Stop expecting to get paid for your time. How much is your time worth? An I don't work for free mindset could actually be doing you more harm than good. How many times in the last week or month have you chosen not to do something because you just don't feel like it? If you look back, you might not be able to count the times you chose to sleep in or binge a Netflix show. You know, all the times you chose to do nothing. Over making positive use of your time. Always remember, guys, selling yourself to the capitalist death cult, which is actively destroying you, is positive. Doing something for the enjoyment of doing something because you like doing it is nothing. That's the clear definition that's being presented here. We just don't have enough time, right? Or are we just not intentional with our time? What does being intentional with our time mean? Some days can feel short. We've woken up, done a bit of work, and it's somehow time for bed again. Other days it can feel like we got so much done and we're pumped for the rest of the week. Likely this is because we woke up that morning and chose to be effective with our time. Being successful doesn't just mean getting lucky. It means that you made an active decision to not let your time be wasted and instead use it intentionally to make your goals a reality. This is just the secret, right? It's just like this pseudo bullshit. A lot of entrepreneurs and people in everyday life don't focus their time on the right things. Being more intentional with your time is a good way to achieve whatever type of success you're looking for. Being success in fitness, business, or anything else. I'm not saying you can't indulge that Netflix binge, but you need to set limits and guidelines for when you're going to relax and how much time you need to relax in order to best use your time. Invest time in yourself. You see a lot of people spending time on social media and focusing on what people should or shouldn't do. Everyone on social media has his or her own opinion, and each person has the right to do it. But it can sometimes become very overwhelming and time-consuming. Take the COVID-19 vaccine, for example. People are constantly providing their reasoning for why you should or shouldn't take it. It's very important, but you should focus your time and efforts on yourself. Make sure to make the right investments in yourself, just as you would with your money. When you invest your money into mutual funds and real estate, it's like investing in reading a book or working out. But investing in a used speedboat is like blowing your time on social media. When we really maximize the use of our time, we set ourselves up for success. In the long term, that correlation between investing your time into yourself and investing your money will have immense benefits in life. Literally like 70 to 80% of the society doesn't have money to invest, dude. Shut the fuck up. How much time do we really have? People come to me complaining about not having the time in the day. They ask me how I find time to do what I do. My time is intentional. And if I don't have enough time, I create more time. I wake up an hour earlier or go to bed an hour later. That extra hour a day is 365 hours a year. That's a lot of time. They say you need to spend 10,000 hours doing something to become an expert at it. If you add an extra 3 hours to your day each day, you'd become an expert in a new skill within a year. That's huge. So next time you think you don't have enough time to do what you want to get done, your primary goals, go back and look at what it is you did do over the past few days. Did you let yourself sleep in, or in this guy's case, sleep? Did you watch a couple of extra episodes of Grey's Anatomy? Did you scroll through TikTok for hours? It's a good idea to keep a schedule on your phone with a good old-fashioned day planner. Until you've gotten good at intentionally using your time without the need for a daily budget, decide every day what you're going to do with each hour from wake up to bedtime. Schedule in your TikTok and Netflix time. Then don't go over. If you find yourself breaking your schedule, give yourself incentives for a little success. No one's going to show up while you're relaxing on the couch and putting off writing that novel until you get to work. You need to parent yourself and get yourself moving. You need to treat yourself like a child who needs a physical push to get going. Then do it. Hold yourself accountable. This sounds fucking psychotic, right? Imagine like planning every hour of your day and like rigidly holding to that plan. This sounds like psycho talk. Like I would rather hang myself than do this. Straight up. I would if somebody forced me into like a rigid schedule like this, saying that my life needs to become this I would literally just kill myself that day. Like, fuck all of this noise. Like, the way to be successful in a capitalist society is to deny your humanity entirely. Don't go outside and stare at the sky for any period of time. Don't go to the beach. Don't enjoy life. Don't smell those flowers or pet the dog. Don't allow the world to exist around you and respond to it as it happens naturally. Nope. Day planner schedule every hour of your life, and if you can't make it work, don't sleep. Stop expecting to get paid for your time. There are many of us who just can't separate the idea that if we are working, we should be getting paid. We think that if we are using our time to do something, there should be some form of monetary reward. We often hear ourselves say things like, I am not doing that for free, but we're not looking at what we're actually learning, or the skills we're gaining from the use of our time. This mindset that our time should always be exchanged for money needs to go. When you start thinking that your time should be exchanged for other things like learning new skills and bettering yourself, you'll start seeing the rewards it brings to your life. Which, hey, will lead to money at some point. This is literally a justification for slave systems, right? We don't need to pay you, you're learning a skill. Realize that there's huge value in our time. That there's always something more to learn. Understand that value extends beyond money, and you'll start using your time more intentionally without even thinking about it. Because the advantages and successes you begin to see appear in your life will propel you forward. This is written by like a total nightmare creature. Like just somebody who's never worried about paying rent, never worried about like where's their next meal going to come from, right? Doesn't even try to understand what it is to be a homeless person. Like is disconnected from reality in meaningful ways. Like literally just like the most beautiful man you've ever seen in the world saying, what? All you got to do is go say hi. Right? Oh, you want to meet a girl? Just go over and say hi. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, if Ryan Reynolds came up to you and was like, and you were like, hey, Ryan Reynolds, I'm nervous about talking to girls. Do you have any advice? And his advice was like, yeah, just go up to them and say hi. You'd be like, shut the fuck up, Ryan Reynolds. Like, just shut the fuck right up. Like, no, bro. Like, no. What? Every time I go up and talk to a woman, she's like, oh, hi. Yeah, dude, you're fucking Ryan Reynolds. Like, oh. Anyway, the psychos are real, dude. The psychos are out there. Commodify all your hobbies. Hustle, grind. Sounds like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, yeah. Be a good, obedient slave. That's what I'm getting from this headline alone. Yeah, the article is just anti-relaxation. But if you're going to start a business, there's going to be a shit ton of work that you'll need to do that you won't get paid for. Living in a cave with no light or clocks makes time feel slower. Oh, yeah, so time to start living in caves with no lights or clocks. If you didn't sleep, think of all those hours you could be working instead. Exactly. Can't make much time if you're working 9 to 5 minimum wage job and barely paying rent, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, exactly, right? And like as if working the 9 to 5 minimum wage job doesn't exhaust you, right? Like that's the thing that's hilarious about this guy. He's like, "Oh, you spent some time relaxing and recovering from the capitalist grind that you exist in, where you work harder than medieval slaves did?" No, you can't do that. Can you imagine if you took this guy's advice? Like, really, what would happen to the average minimum wage worker if they actually took this advice? Miss sleep, don't have any decompression time. How long until they snap? How long do you think it would be? I think I would give them like 2 months. I think it would take 2 months for a person who followed this advice working a minimum wage job, just trying to scrape by, get their bills paid, before they literally snap. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. That's what, like, this is delusional. Like, it's high-level deluded bullshit. You must monetize every moment of your existence. Yay, pizza party. Yeah. I just got my booster 4 hours ago. Does that mean I get free peanuts if I ever fly? I think you get free peanuts anyway, don't you? Right? Congrats for getting your booster, bud. Like, I've been looking into it, but yeah. Canada's gap between real estate prices and incomes look ridiculous beside US data. Like, this article, guys, is going to hurt your brain. It's going to hurt your fucking brain to realize, like, we're worse than the United States in this regard. Canada and America real estate prices are both at frothy valuations, but look nothing alike. U.S. Federal Reserve data shows home prices grew faster than incomes in Q2 of 2021 for both countries. The difference is, this has been a long-term trend for Canada since 2005. Meanwhile, in the U.S., home prices have only recently begun to outpace growth. Contrasted, the gap between home prices and incomes in Canada is comically large when compared to the U.S. Canadian home prices have grown 13 times faster than in the U.S. The U.S. Federal Reserve considers both Canada and the U.S. in a real estate bubble, but they're really not the same. As of Q2 2021, Canada has seen real home prices rise 139% since 2005. In contrast, the U.S. has only seen real home prices rise 10% over the same period. Canadian home prices have seen 13 times the growth of the U.S. over the same period. Prior to 2005, they had charted a similar path before disconnecting. Canadian incomes grew faster, but not enough to justify home price growth. Canadian incomes must have grown much faster than U.S. incomes over that period, right? As of Q2 2021, Canadian real disposable incomes increased by 46% by 2005. In the U.S., incomes only increased 10% over the same period. So, Canada grew faster. However, not nearly enough to justify the gap between home prices and incomes. It's hard to appreciate those stats, so let's combine them to show how wacky they are. Home prices in Canada advanced 64% faster than disposable incomes in the country from 2005 to 2021. In the U.S., incomes advanced 16% faster than home prices. Homes are developing a significant premium in contrast to labor in Canada. In the U.S., it's the opposite. Charting both trends together highlights how absurd the situation in Canada has become. Well, I've actually got to sorry guys, going to cover you for a second here, but look at this shit. Look at this shit. This is the Canada home prices, right? Canadian incomes, U.S. incomes, U.S. home prices. Like literally, there was like even a dip here. Look at this, right? That's the housing crash, right? This is the housing crash, right? Which Canada just like, oh, housing crash? I don't think so. All right, hold on. Get. Ugh. Got to see you guys. Got to see your beautiful comments, right? So it's just ridic. It's just ridic. Oh yeah. Oh buddy, do you want to come up? You're coming up. What a good boy. Oh, I love you too, buddy. I love you too. Yes, you're such a good little boy, aren't you? You don't realize how popular you are. You don't realize how popular you are. You're so popular. Yeah, dude, Barnabas, I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. That's how I felt at the beginning of this stream. I'm just like, I'm so fucking tired of all this. Like, and, like, it would be different. Like, every country faces problems, right? Every country faces problems. And it would be, like, different if those problems were coming and the people we elected were like, we're going to do something about it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to move forward. Yes, it sucks, but here we go. Right? But they're not doing that. Like, they're pretending like they're doing that. Right? Like, they're standing up in front of us and be like, we're going to raise tax by 1%. And it's like, that's not going to do anything, dude. Like, that's not going to work. Like, they don't actually care about us, and it's really, really obvious. And that's the reason why it's so exhausting. Right? It's so fucking exhausting to live in a country where your political leadership is unresponsive to you completely. And it's the faking. It's the faking that hurts the most, right? And it's annoying that it seems like huge majorities of Canadians are like, yeah, they're faking. That's great. They're faking. Look, they're saying that this is real, and it's completely not. And that's good enough for me. Liberal. Right? Like, that's the part that's the worst, in my view. That I would actually straight up prefer it if the government stood up and said, yeah, fuck you. Go die. I would be like, oh, okay. Like, ah. But it's that they stand up in front and be like, and they're like, I hear you. I hear your pain. Right? Like, no, you don't. Like, you're all you're doing is like writing what we're saying to you on a cue card and then coming out and being like, you, Canadian voter, are complaining about high housing costs. We, the Liberal government, are going to... And then they take the cue card from the, like, housing developers, from the people who are literally making money, the investor class, and they go, we, the government, are going to raise tax by 1%. And the Canadian people go, oh, yay, they're gonna do a thing! And that's it. It's like, and it has become, like, exactly like that. Like, it has become exactly like that, right? We here in the Liberal government hear that you are complaining about climate change. Well, we are going to, and then they take a cue card from the fossil fuel industry, install a carbon tax. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, they're doing something, yeah! Like, it's just garbage. It's like garbage upon garbage. And it's like right in front of your face now. Like, it's right in front of your face now. It's unavoidable. And the most exhausting part of all of it is that people don't seem to understand that that's exactly what's happening, right? That they seem to be pretending as though the Liberals are doing something. No, they're not. Like, no, they're not. Like, at all. And what are we going to wait like 20 years to be like, they said they were going to do something about climate change? You know, what, are we going to wait till 2030? And they're like, yeah, they missed their targets. They blew right by them. They didn't even try, right? Emissions have only gone up. We're going to wait till like 2030 for everybody to be like, hey, wait a minute. I think that these Liberals, I think maybe these Liberals might not be telling us the whole truth. And the rest of us are just going to be like, fucking idiot, right? Like, that's... What do you mean extreme housing prices? Yeah, exactly. Kenny's Wuhan bat soup comments draws criticism. Man, Kenny, he's just burning it down, eh? Like, he just doesn't give a fuck anymore. Oh, I've lost the whole story. what was the comment? He made this just like, so he makes this like offhanded, okay, it's not manifesting, and okay. He essentially says, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, I don't know, it's going to be some new Wuhan bat soup situation. You're just like, oh my god, dude. Like, there's a reason why, Canada Premier's ranked from the Winnipeg Sun right at the fucking bottom, right? You got Jason Kenney, 29% approval rating, right? That's only worse in Manitoba, where Heather Stephenson is at 28%. And the reason why this says not applicable, what's in the brackets is what it was last year. It's because the leader of the provincial of the Progressive Conservatives in Manitoba resigned. Brian Pallister resigned. That's how bad he was doing, right? He was doing such a shit job in Manitoba, and everybody was so fucking mad at him that he resigned. Like, really put together how like shit a job you have to be and how terrible a leader you have to be to fucking resign from your position in disgrace. So like, literally Kenny is like 1 percentage point higher than that, right? Like, he's out. Like, he's gonna lose the next election. It's gonna be an NDP government. And then where's Doug Ford? There's Dougie, right? A full 12 points down from this time last year, right? And then, oddly, Horgan's still doing pretty good. Horgan, people still looking at Horgan being like, yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? We'll see. We'll see. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to show this whole thing because it's painful. But, like, people are starting to put together, like, compilations.
It's me. No. No. Your country, you can do whatever you want. But here you go by this. Yeah. So you screwed us. You screwed us. How many other people did you screw?
No, not school. Okay, every doctor do the same. You know
I
what I'm
am.
saying?
No. Can't do that.
You know, that I have no chance to print the menu. We just called New York last week. They're not printed out yet.
Yeah,
so this cost me $1,000 to print all these, all these, okay?
No, this is the price.
That's
today.
the price. I am taking pictures.
I don't
Because
mind.
you even upped the prices of his drink too.
I'm still working on the menu. Look at that.
Yeah.
I still,
Well, you should have done.
So, like, what's going on with these Karens? Like, what's going on with these Karens, do you think? Like, I have a Karen theory that's going on, right? Which is that the society is breaking apart, right? That it is turning into an every man for themselves situation, right? That even the pretense that we're all in this together is beginning to fray and break down, right? That they tried to sell us that idea in the pandemic that we're all in this together, but or we're all in the same boat. But the reality is the response to that was, no, we're not in the same boat. We're in the same storm, right? But many of us are in different boats from one another. And it seems to me that as the society breaks apart and this narrative of individualism begins to take hold, more and more people feel as though, well, why shouldn't I act this way? Like, for real, why shouldn't I act this way? Explain it to me.
You need to go back there and do your job. I will.
Why shouldn't I act this way?
Do your job. Y'all want this woman?
We're not in a society,
She will not make my
right? There's no sense of social cohesion.
Come on out here and do your job.
There's no sense that we
got the
are
right
living in
White girl, somebody call
a society where we need to respond to one another,
Why not?
right? You have nothing to offer me.
She's one person, and I'm willing to wait for their food that she's refusing to make. So, you won't call the law? Okay, well then serve your country and sit right on right there. I bet you got that vaccine too, didn't you? Yeah, you Democrat, socialist, commie bastard.
Like, literally calling a member of the United States military a commie. Like, white privilege rearing its ugly head, plain and simple. This is all bubbled up to the surface between Trumpism and the pandemic. Yeah. And I think it's the stress. It's the stress. I think that's what I'm driving towards, and I think you're touching on that too, Harry, which is that the stress of the situation, coupled with the fact that there is no social cohesion anymore, that everything is just an every man for themselves kind of thing. That's what everybody is being told, right? Everyone is being told it's every man for themselves, right? Well, when you get into that situation, people begin to become unhinged. The society begins producing supervillains, right? That when it's every man for themselves, don't be too fucking surprised when people start to act like this.
Are you going to the National? I am going to sue Subway now because the scratched my face. Yep. Look at it.
Like, people are becoming unhinged. They're beginning to they're beginning to loosen. The sanity is beginning to loosen.
You're a mess. Ugly. Badass mess. Get the out of.
What is up with all of these criminal assaults taking place over a simple mask policy that they may disagree with?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head with, who would have thought that we would be missing the days where calling the manager, we would be desperate for these white women to just go on Yelp, call the manager, make a Facebook status. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I can't believe anything other than the fact that people are doing this for sport. People are doing this for entertainment purposes, and it is mind-boggling how far.
I don't think that it's sport. I think that people like people cannot articulate their abandonment, right? Like, people don't know how to or what language to use to articulate the fact that they've been abandoned. Like, nobody trusts their government, nobody trusts their media, nobody, like, people are literally willing to push their chips all the way in with like Q conspiracy theories, right? Like, I literally talked to a guy on a message board I've never met, and that's who I'm going to push my chips in, right? Like, that kind of stuff is happening in America today. And like, this is what happens when you create a culture of individualism. When you create a culture that says you don't need to care about what your neighbor thinks. You don't need to care about what any institution thinks. You don't need to care about any of this. It's cheat, lie, and steal. Scrabble your way around. Fuck over whoever you can fuck around with. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to give a fuck about them. You go back to your house and live your life, right? And if you can fuck over somebody for $10, you should do it, right? That's the story we're being told. Like, this is the society that is coming out of the pandemic, right? And it's like, why shouldn't you act this way? That's the question I keep asking myself. Like, why shouldn't you walk into an establishment and just start screaming at the staff? Why shouldn't you? Like, really? Like, that? I'm not asking that rhetorically. I'm actually asking the chat. Can you think of reasons? Why shouldn't you just walk in and just start screaming at staff and demanding things from the staff? Why? Is there a reason? I know. Why shouldn't you, Milo? Why shouldn't you walk into a restaurant and just start screaming at the staff? Why? I can't, in a capitalist society, I can't think of a reason. Can you? Can you? No. Okay, let's put you down. Bye-bye. Good boy, buddy. And like, and you could make an argument like, it would cost next to nothing. It's better than the tent cities. Studies have shown homeless people get better with somewhere to put their stuff. Yeah. No, I mean, the evidence is in the homeless issue, dude. Like, the evidence is in. Giving people houses is literally how you end homelessness. It's like the same thing with like a basic income. Oh, you want to end poverty? Well, give people money, right? It's it's amazingly straightforward. And all of the arguments against doing these things are psychotic at this point. Like, literally just deranged psychosis, just designed to keep inflating the egos of the 5 rich guys, right? Like, we're getting to a point of total derangement, and that derangement is manifesting itself in the populace, right? They are making your food, for one. Yeah, there's an actual rational reason, Frog, why you shouldn't do it, right? Maybe if somebody's making your food, you shouldn't berate them. They might do something to it. I know restaurant staff. Who outright have said to me, they're like, yeah, if somebody's rude to me, I spit in their shit. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, fuck these people, right? But we're talking about like open warfare, right? We're talking about like open psychological warfare within the populace. Ottawa allows tiny homes in backyards. So if you already have a home, you can have a tiny home. People often argue that working from home makes us less productive. The truth is the opposite. We worry more about productivity because the office functions like a panopticon. The capitalist system ensures that we don't need overseers. We learn to oversee ourselves. Isn't that just a bitch? Ain't that a bitch? Right? That the office culture becomes like this overwhelming... You know what I think is the funniest invention, by the way, that's come out of this whole thing? Mouse Jiggler. You guys know about these? Right? You can buy an app, or you can buy a little device that'll jiggle your mouse. Right? It'll jiggle your mouse around. So it'll look like you're actually working or productive or doing something when you're not. Isn't that great? Like, that's how psychotic we've become. That's how psychotic the system is getting. We're literally needing to like create apps in order to protect workers from exploitive managers who want to punish them for not being productive, even though the definition of productivity is not action, it's results, right? So if you're getting the results, who gives a shit if you're like sitting at your computer all the time, hyper engaged, right? Should we have the right to terrorize wage slaves because I feel oppressed by the cloth that covers my gob holes? This is the capitalist way. Not only exploitation by the boss, but by the consumer. Yeah. Well, and it's a cycle that reinforces itself, right? That like the Karens and the Kens are usually in the managerial class, right? And they expect a certain degree of service, right? That and the capitalist system has promised them. And it's created a system that absolves the Karens and the Kens from feeling guilty about owning slaves directly, while expecting the same level of service from a slave class that is maintained by the capitalist system, right? That what makes wage slavery abhorrent is that the wage slaves are enslaved to a market, right? They are a commodity, right? Like, you can go ahead and read The Wealth of Nations to see Smith explicitly talk about labor as a commodity, right? And that you are just a commodity subservient to a system that enslaves you. It's a wage slave system. And part of the reason why the Karens and the Kens want wage slaves is so that they can vent out their own oppression against someone downward from them, right? Shit flows downhill, so they say, right? And like, I don't think we should tolerate it, like, genuinely. I think we should like these people should be like we're not going to serve you. Very, very, very simple and straightforward. Like, we're not going to serve you. Right? Like, and I mean, that's a big reason what's going on in the Great Resignation. People are just saying, like, I'm not going to work for these people. They're psychos. Right? I'm not going to work for this shit. Like, for what? So that I can't even pay rent? Like, that's the best part. To be berated and shit on like this and not even get enough money to pay rent. Like, is there any wonder why the society is collapsing and crumbling when you've got people like this in the society? When we've rewarded the absolute most reprehensible people who, like, don't give a shit about even, like, basic humanity. Like, basic humanity. Just, like, be nice. Right? Like, be nice. Like that first lady in the video that I was showing. Like, what was her complaint? Her complaint was that she got an old menu, that it wasn't the new menus that were being printed. There was a price change. And so there was like a minor miscommunication that probably resulted in something like $5 to $10, right? And she's putting up this huge fuss and obviously doing it because she can, right? Because she's the master and you're the serf, right? Yeah. I hate being an employee. I refuse to have that kind of relationship. Yeah. Like, it is getting to the point now, like, the employer-employee dynamic and the relationship that exists within capital, it is actually what is being fought over now, right? Like, the capitalist class is releasing like enormous amounts of propaganda to try to justify this failed system. That's what the Capitalist Manifesto is from the National Post. And the populace is essentially saying, like, no, we refuse to be your employees anymore, right? And one of the major reasons why anyone doesn't want to be an employee is because the customers have become psychos, right? That the customers themselves are overstressed, themselves exploited, right? Everything is at this heightened hysterical kind of thing. And this culture of enslavement, this culture that the customer gets what they want, this kind of stuff, has enabled the worst people in the society, right? Like, the worst people in the society. And like, and what's even worse than this is that if an employee stands up for themselves, the role of the manager is to punish them for it, is to admonish them, is to ensure that you correct that behavior or you get rid of them. That's the role of the managerial class. That's what they're supposed to do. It's intolerable. It's completely intolerable. Like, and straight up, like, if I saw someone acting like this in public, like, I would let them have it. Like, I'd let them fucking have it. Because, like, nobody should treat anybody this way. Like, oh, sorry, sweetie, like, your thing costs $5 more than you expected it to. Sorry, right? Oh, no, sorry, we're out of that. Sorry. Like, sorry. Like, I had somebody come in at my capitalist job that I do on the weekends. I had somebody come in and we were out of the thing that she wanted when she got to the till. And she, like, tried to bitch at us. And I just took one look at her and I said, too bad, we're out. And she got the message pretty quick that, like, yeah, things were going to escalate pretty quickly if she kept going this way with me. I'm lucky because I work in a capitalist job where the managers are like, yeah, fuck those people. Like, that's the attitude. Like, because they're not actually managers, right? They're cooks, right? That they're cooks and like they're cooks and restaurateurs, right? They're not cafe people, and so like they got a real like Chef Ramsay way about things, where like if you come back and start bitching, they're gonna bitch right fucking back at your face, and if the customer says, well, I'm never coming back, they'll say, good, get out. Like, so I'm fortunate in that way, but like people who like work at Starbucks, people who work at like Subway, they don't have that luxury. Like, they super don't have that luxury. Like, the situation that is going on for wage workers right now is intolerable. It's intolerable. No human should be expected to live under these conditions, right? You are a slave. It's very obvious. And now they're not even willing to pay enough to cover your rent. Like, the fight for 15 has been going on for fucking almost a decade now, and now $15 isn't going to cover it. Like, the whole fucking thing needs to come down. It needs to come down. It needs to end. Because it's gross. Like, it's gross what's happening. And it's only going to get worse than this. Right? Like they were saying on that video, like, it was bad enough when they say, I'd like to speak to your manager, and now they're not even doing that. Right? Now it's turning into, like, physical altercations. Now they're just, like, screaming at you. Right? And it's like, it's going to get worse. Because these people are, like, psychos. They're literal psychos that, like, are actually finding pleasure in denigrating you, right? Because the system permits it, and there's no reason not to. Like, there's no reason not to, right? Treat these people like shit. Treat these people like shit all you want, right? Like, we've all seen the movie Django, right? Like, the white slave owner would pit slaves against one another in fucking fist fights to the death. Like, that's the kind of shit that these people want to do to us. Don't fool yourself. Like, don't fool yourself at all. And once you start complaining about wages, they start paying the worthy, unworthy game, yeah? Well, and even if you do get the wages, then suddenly, oh, look at the inflation that we create. Oh, look at that. We're just going to jack the prices, right? Like, the capitalist class is unrepentantly psychotic. And they tell you that they are. That's the part that's the funniest, right? That they tell you how psychotic they are to your face, right? Like, these people have no moral center or desire to improve anything, right? They explicitly tell you, and if it gets bad enough, if you find the solutions that are acute enough, they'll say things like, well, then we'll just leave. To which my response is, good, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out. I'm glad to see you go. Leave. Fuck off. Forever. Societies have to put a floor on suffering, yeah? And I mean, like, this is the thing, right? Like, we can create whatever we want in the world. Like, there is truth to that. That we can manifest collectively the reality we want to see. That if we all agreed to behave in a certain way, and that was the thing that was agreed upon, we would do it. Right? But we have to actually do it. And we have to actually, like, collectively come together and agree that there are reasonable ways to act and there are unreasonable ways to act. But if you just leave it to, like, the free market to decide, well, don't be too surprised when it's the psychopaths who take over. I could go buy a home for just under 100K just over the border. Yeah, but then you'd have to be in America. Like, there is a reason why housing prices are going up in Canada, and it's because Canada is nicer. Like, to a degree. To a degree. We're doing everything we can to end that. We're doing everything we can to just become another state. A for-profit company is trying to privatize as many public libraries as they can. Like, yeah. Yeah. This is like the next phase of the capitalist takeover, right? They're not only are they trying to privatize libraries, they're also trying to privatize the internet. And the way that they're trying to privatize the internet is they're trying to make the very infrastructure itself that the internet is based upon be something that people can own, right? That investors can have. Like, right now, the internet is essentially open source, right? You can own a website, right? So you can have, like, Facebook, you can have, like, Amazon, and that's like a website that's run through the open source internet that nobody actually owns, right? So what they're trying to do next is to privatize that infrastructure and allow investors to actually own the internet itself. So, and it's through that, just like through the privatization of libraries, that an enormous censorship campaign will be unleashed on the populace. Like, that's the primary reason to privatize the internet. That's the primary reason to privatize a library, is to just remove knowledge you don't want even talked about at all. And that's the next phase that we are 100% going to experience. Like, they don't want people like me even existing at all. They just want, I'll just disappear, right? I'll just disappear. And like, they will attempt to disappear people like Noam Chomsky. They will attempt to disappear people like Michael Parenti. They will attempt to disappear Richard Wolff and Chris Hedges. These people will just disappear. They'll just be gone from the internet. Yeah, sounds like fascism. Yeah. Like, where do you think you live, dude? Fascism won World War II. Like, fascism had a big win in World War II. Like, a big win. Wasn't small. Like, I don't, well, the difference is minute. Like, even the people who get into my face about, like, fascism and capitalism are different. I'm like, okay, well, can you define those differences? The differences are so, like, it's literally the difference between a person who is smiling and a person who is frowning. It's the same person, right? It's just, you know, sometimes that person pulls out a knife on you. That's it. It's the same fucking person. Like, like, I respect why people feel like they need to create a distinction between fascism and capitalism, but I honestly don't see it. Like, and the more I read and the more I learn about it, the more I really do see that, like, people define fascism first and then seek to talk about how it arises. Like, they say that fascism and capitalism are different first, and then go about seeking to explain how fascism arises. And I'm like, okay, well, what happens if you don't make that distinction initially? What happens if you say that what happened in Hitler's Germany and Mussolini's Italy was just capitalism, right? And what you find is, like, pretty major correlations between what the Germans did and what the Italians did and what the Americans did in their own country, right? Fascism is when a group of the ruling class seizes the levers of power so they can reorganize society in their favor, usually after a failed revolution. Again, dude, like, how is that different than capitalism? Like, really? Like, capitalism ultimately takes over, and, like, American capitalism especially. Like, read the Constitution. Like, read their Constitution. James Madison is explicit. The purpose of the Constitution and the purpose of the ruling structure is to keep power within the wealth of the nation, right? Like, that's the point. So when you say fascism is when a group of the ruling class seizes the levers of power so they can reorganize society in their favor, like capitalists have always done and continue to always do forever, it's not different from capitalism. It's just a stage of capitalism or emerges out of it. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that it is treated as though it is different, right? People talk about fascism as if it's this separate entity or this separate thing. And or they try to say that it's like, well, there's a period of time, like, essentially what I think I'm driving towards is that they pretend as though there's ever a period of time in any capitalist society where it's not acting in the way that they talk about under fascism, right? It's always acting that way. Always. Like, without exception, every time, right? Are there moments where, like, it's using a silk hand, right? Is there a moment where it's instead petting your cheek instead of just beating you over the head? Sure. Like a fucking psycho would do. Yes, you're beautiful. I love you. I love you. You better not upset me like last time. Like, it's just capitalism. Like, it's just capitalism. The system is a psychopath, right? Whether it's smiling at you or whether it's got a knife drawn against you as it pins you against the wall, it's the same fucking person. And this insistence to try to call the moment when it's got the knife drawn fascism and the moment when the knife is hidden capitalism, it, in my view, is done almost explicitly to protect capitalists. Because then capitalists, like, when capitalists want to go to war with one another, they can just accuse each other of being fascists, right? And as long as the populace understands fascism as being something distinct or unique or different than what capitalism normally is, they'll buy into that. Whenever I look at a fascist society, I'm like, that looks like capitalism to me. Like, doesn't look different. If anybody could explain to me how it's different, I'd like to know. But, like, so, like, the people that the American capitalists are invading and destroying, like, do you think they care too much about the distinction, whether or not America is fascist or capitalist? Like, do you think that the citizens of Afghanistan are sitting there being like, oh, thank God we were invaded by capitalists and not fascists? That would have been really, really, really different. They say we live in a democracy. I do not agree. When a majority rule the rest, it's not a democracy. Yeah, that's people ruling over the rest. Yeah, like it's it's a plutocracy or an oligarchy, right? Like I've heard inverted totalitarianism is a good term. Comes out of the works of Sheldon Wolin. Chris Hedges talks a lot about him. There really is no such thing as socialist, communist, or free market tribe. All tribes today are a huge and complicated mix of so many ideas, so try to avoid getting trapped into that kind of debate. Well, and part of it is like we've lost the ability to, like, we don't know the difference between right and wrong anymore, right? Like the concept of consent doesn't seem to exist in our society any longer. Like we don't really give a shit about consent. We don't really give a shit about like, and this bears out in like the abortion conversation, right? Like women are not, like their consent is meaningless in the conversation to today's ruling class. Like they're overturning Roe v. Wade, they're doing all this kind of stuff, and like women just don't have the right to consent anymore. It's just removed from them. When someone says a tribe is communist, just ask them if he has no leader, no money, has eliminated scarcity, and so on. If they say one is free market system, ask them what they mean by free. That's a really good point, dude. Like freedom is so loosely defined, right? Like the people walking around saying I should have the freedom to not wear a mask, but like you don't have the freedom to endanger your fellow citizen. But they don't care about that, right? Because there is no sense of community or society any longer. There is no sense of like, I have to do something to help other people. Like that doesn't exist anymore. That's why you have like a libertarian far right rising in America where they're just like literally like we're all individuals. I don't need to do anything for anyone. Why should I pay for someone else's education? Right? And it always comes down to the same argument. Well, why should I pay for someone else's X? Right? Why should I pay for someone else's garbage collection? Why should I pay for someone else's education? Why should I pay for someone else's roads? Why should I pay for someone else's this, that, or the other thing? And the conversation is always the same every single time, right? Why should I pay for someone's garbage collection? Well, because if you don't, then the streets are full of garbage. Oh, well, then we should fine people who just put garbage on the streets. So you want to hire a police officer or an inspector or a fine person to give these people fines and put them through a legal system and pay for all of that, when it would be cheaper to just pay to have the person's garbage picked up. Is that correct? Like, and that's really what it comes down to. That if the choice for these people is between paying less but improving someone's life and paying more and ruining someone's life, they want to pay more to ruin someone else's life. It's very straightforward. Like, we don't have we don't seem to understand that there is a difference between right and wrong. that, and it doesn't matter to anyone anymore. It literally is just like the most short-term, what can I get for myself right now? I don't care who I have to fuck over. Like, is it any wonder why the country has fallen apart? Is it any wonder? Because the more educated people there are, the better your life is. Yeah, in terms of the education one, right? Like, you don't want to live in a society full of stupid people. Like, straight up. You want to pay for someone else's education because you don't want to live in a society full of stupid people. Like, for real. The violation of consent is a crime regardless of who or what does it. Yeah. But that doesn't seem to matter anymore, right? Like, consent doesn't seem to matter at all. This is the major crime when it comes to invading other countries, right? Like, the people who are being invaded don't consent. Like, they're not sitting there being like, please invade us, right? Like, this was George W. Bush's big lie. We'll be greeted as liberators, as if the people were crying out for America to come in and save them. Like, no. Like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. I work at a church on Sundays, and the smartest thing the pastor has said thus far is that they're stealing our stimulus back through inflation, and I can't shake that thought. Yeah, individualist ideology, the self-made man extracting anything they can from their society yet professing individual responsibility. Yeah, it's the perfect grift, right? We are going to systemically extract wealth from you while simultaneously blaming any plight you're experiencing on you. Like, it's the perfect grift. And the only reason it works is because the victims believe it. Like, that's it. That if the victims of the grift were to suddenly say, wait, this is a grift, and you're grifters, that would be the end of it. It would be over, right? It would just end. But the harsh reality of what it is to be a human being is that, like, most of humanity is extremely short-sighted and dumb. Like, and I'm not trying to say that as an insult, but, like, it's just a truism. Most people can't get past their own nose, right? They just can't. That they see the world through their own eyes. They have no sense of a larger meta picture. They don't understand their own place in the structure because they don't acknowledge that a structure exists. Their existence literally is skin deep. Literally. And if you can get these people to believe that it's everyone's individualism to individualize their individualism, then they'll completely ignore it when you use systemic systems to completely fuck them over. Right? Which is what's happening. Like, completely what's happening. And in America, it's as explicit as it can be. Like, the powerful know what they're doing. They understand that there are systems that they're using to fuck people over. Like, they get it. They know what it looks like, right? But if you can just have all the people in your society professing this idea of individualism, then, like, there is no more gullible people. Like, no one is more gullible than a person walking around saying that the solution to all of our problems is for everyone to individualize their individualism. Like, it's gullibility upon gullibility. It's unbelievable how dumb you've got to be to actually believe that. But we're very dumb people. Here's the statement. Here's the statement from the man himself.
World. But I know that because of the pandemic, many borrowers need more time to resume payments. For that reason, my administration is extending the pause on student loans repayments for 90 more days through May 1, 2022. In the meantime, folks should take advantage of the Department of Education's option to make payments easier, like income-based repayments or public service student loan forgiveness program. Look at them both. I want you to stay safe. Get vaccinated. Don't forget to get your booster. It matters. And happy holidays.
Just cancel the debt, dude. Just cancel it. Literally, the way the student loan system is structured, his office, he could forgive all student loan debt with literally the stroke of a pen. It would be like a two-line statement, and it would be done. Doesn't need to go through Congress. Doesn't need to go through Senate. Joe Biden himself can eliminate the student loan debt. That's why he was able to extend it, right? Like, it's a fucking joke. Like, it's a total fucking joke. And it's getting to the point where it's like, we know it's a joke. And like, we know they know it's a joke. And they know we know it's a joke. And everybody knows. And yet we're still playing the game, right? If someone acknowledges that poverty is a system, then they too are culpable because they're party of the system, yeah? If somebody only acknowledges individual choices, then they can retain their cultural power without guilt. That's a good way of looking at it, DJ, yeah? Yeah, have you noticed the governments that rail against big government have the largest number of ministers and staff? Yeah. Like, big surprise, these guys are hypocrites. Big fucking surprise, right? The people who are always railing on about the deficit are the ones that expand the deficit, right? Like, just like, and over and over and over again, we see it bear out in our society, right? There's, like, the political class has no reason not to lie, right? There's no punishment. And in fact, when they lie, they get huge rewards, right? Like, the Canadian people we love liars. The people who stand up in front of the Canadian people and tell the truth are expunged and thrown away, right? The people who stand up in front of the Canadian people and tell enormous lies, like huge lies, egregious lies, are always rewarded for it. Goodbye, Dan. Have a good one, bud. We're getting to the end of this one anyway. So there's no reason not to lie, right? If you are in politics, you should always lie. This is actually becoming my official critique of the Conservative Party federally, right? That they're not lying well enough. That's the reason why they can't grow. That's the reason why they can't get power, is that they're not telling, that they're trying to somehow tell the truth, right? They're trying to take their dumb, failed little ideology, right? And they're trying to reframe it, right? Which isn't lying, right? They're trying to reframe it, and they're trying to create new language, and they're trying to present it to us differently. They're trying to find ways to show us the truth of what they believe, to try to convince us that it's actually real. And that's not how you do politics in Canada, right? You do politics by telling enormous lies. That's how you get power in Canada, right? Like, look at Doug Ford. Doug Ford told enormous lies. Like, he wasn't going to shut down the basic income program. He was going to leave the climate change stuff alone. He wasn't going to commit to mass austerity, right? He was going to do, like, he was going to reduce, he was going to do something about electrical bills and all this kind of stuff. Just lie after lie after lie after lie. And everything he said he wasn't going to do, he did. And everything he said he was going to do, he didn't do. Like, there hasn't actually been a bigger fraud. Even Mike Harris was less of a fraud than this. And like, but it's completely working. It's completely working, right? Yeah, don't pay student debt until May 1st so it can accumulate more interest. Great help. Yeah, exactly, Isaac. Exactly. Let people bankrupt out of this. Let free these people. Let them be free. Let these people be free. All right, guys. We have reached the end of this one. As always, thank you so much for being here. Like, share, subscribe. Send it around. Send it around. YouTube isn't sending this shit around anymore. Like, it's just you guys. It's just you guys. Please tell people I exist. Please find people to subscribe to me. I'm so close to 1,000 subscribers. That's the reason they're throttling me. They don't want me to reach 1,000. They don't want me to reach 1,000. Because they know the game changes when I hit 1,000 subscribers. So, let everybody know I exist. Please, God, please. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you Each and every one of you is a quantum being living in a quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to try to make sure you never realize it. Because if you do, you might realize that you're just as valid as they are. And that makes you very difficult to control. Become ungovernable. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.